he has a choleric temperament. This means that he thinks, plans, and acts in the long term.
Cool.
He is willful, bossy, and commanding, very orderly in his thinking. He thinks.
So listen to what he's saying, right? Obviously, the thinking and the orderliness in thinking is the only bit I really disagree with. But everything else is reflected in Sam's astrology. Now, maybe Taylor thinks astrology is bunk. Maybe he's extremely skeptical about astrology. But the only real reason I even got into physiognomy was through astrology. Was the fact that I realized, oh, you can have a mercurial face shape. Oh, you can have a Saturnian face shape. You can have a Jupiterian face shape.
Of things in terms of big projects and plans. He can seem a bit cold or uncaring at times. And lastly, he's a pretty sexual person and can mistake sex for love. Now, there has been a shift.
See that? He's a pretty sexual person and can mistake sex for love. Slow to act, bossy, willful. If Mars rules how we fuck and how we fight, how we take action in the world, our drive, our ambition, our libido, then Sam having his Mars in Taurus means he's really slow to get going. It also means he really lives viscerally in the sensual stuff, right? So, I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Though in his temperament over the years, we see that he's actually gained some weight over time, gained some weight, looking a little more pale. And both of these would be bodily signs of
Hector, man, you absolute fucking legend. Yeah, guys, if you too would like to upgrade your membership from plebeian, plebeian's pretty decent, you know, for like $1 a month you get a bunch of hidden videos. But yeah, if you want to go aristocrat, then you get the stream backlog. If you want to go warrior, then you get like obviously reading in the Black Library. If you want to go wizard, then you get audio recording. Dude, insane. Just keep, if you are looking, Hector, for the link to the Black Library, you'll find it in the community post of this on this page.
Yeah, phlegmatic temperament, becoming less choleric and more phlegmatic, especially getting a double chin.
I need to make a note of that. The face changing over time. The face changing, even changing its quintessential humours over time, from perhaps more sanguine to more caloric. I have to ask Taylor about that. I also have to ask him about how he reads that inner face. Because, man, it doesn't matter how many times he tells me that a caloric person has this kind of forehead and this kind of jaw and this kind of whatever. I just have a real hard time reading the humors in people's faces. He seems to just be like really, really good at it, just intuit it naturally. I guess he's been doing it for so long that it just becomes second nature.
Chin there, getting some flesh around the jawline, obscuring that. That's a core phlegmatic trait. So what does that mean? Well, the phlegmatic type is also a long-term type like the choleric, but they're more slow and steady and less intense and energetic like the choleric is. So this would likely symbolize that he was becoming more stable, less intense and frenetic in his energy, and much more calm, tolerant, and enduring. The phlegmatic types are the best at enduring stressful situations. We can see that this shift started to happen around 2016, 2017 after his Adult Swim show got canceled. He kind of had this time in the wilderness, his metaphorical 40 years in the desert, wandering around and uploading stuff on his Gumroad, but not really having quite the public presence he had before. But in this time, he was building up institutional sort of stuff, of building his crew, his studio, his new way of doing things, less so, vertical videos in his mom's bathroom, and more so these big, high effort projects. Now, next, we're going to be looking at his face shape, which will tell us about his personality archetype.
This stuff I find fascinating. The idea that you can break the face down into facial thirds, the idea that there's a top half of the face, like loosely resonant to the brain and to the intellect, and a middle third of the face loosely related to the eyes and to emotion, and a lower third of the face loosely related to will, right? Like apparently you can see criminality a lot in someone's jaw and in someone's ears. I'm fascinated by these kind of things. Now listen, obviously I'm not by no means an expert. I'm like just a casual. I'm a physiognomy casual. Like I look into it, I dip into it. I watch guys like this. I'm like Twitter friends with Jack of Faces, who's been on this stream previously. I'm just incredibly interested in the idea that, much like I found astrology to just be true time and time again. And there's no, like the natal chart really just says everything. And you're either a good astrologer and you can interpret it well, or you're a bad astrologer and I feel like somebody's face says everything. I feel like somebody's face tells you absolutely everything you need to know about them, but I just don't speak that language, right? I don't have the faculty for that language in the ways that guys like this do.
archetype. That is the general outline of his personality, the big picture there. We can see in
It'd
his...
be hella interesting to see Taylor's chart, actually. Because when we had Jack on and we looked at Jack's chart, Jack had this mad stellium in Aquarius, and he like had this mad Saturnian. Everything was either Capricorn or Aquarius. I'd be really interested to see what this guy's chart looks like.
Youth, it looks pretty triangular. So a triangular face shape is the Mercury face shape. That would mean that he has the jester or magician personality archetype. This will mean that he's pretty sensitive, quick thinking, reactive, humorous. It's a very natural face for a comedian. You find a lot of comedians and the more charismatic actors have this face, singers too sometimes. But there's a secondary element there. It looks a bit trapezoid as well, which is the Saturn face shape, stands for the accountant archetype. And this plays up some of those choleric features. So that would mean that he is very meticulous, diligent, time conscious, and again, highly sexual. We can see that the combination of the Mercury and Saturn face shape, that triangle plus trapezoid kind of mixed shape there, could fit a combination personality archetype that we could call maybe the Lothario.
Now there are a couple of things that I want to talk to Taylor about. Obviously, I have a whole heap of questions prepared in advance of this. I also have some faces that I want him to take a look at. All right, I want him to take a look at Candace Owens' face. I want him to take a look at Jordan Peterson's face. I want to take a look at Dr. Armin Hillman's face. But if you guys have any requests, and if you remember, of course, yeah, shoot it in the comments and I'll try and get around to it at the end. We can try and get him to do some analysis for us.
It will be someone who's very sensitive and charismatic, but also highly sexual. Now, in his later years, more getting into his 30s, his rise to fame during the 2010s, he keeps that trapezoid shape, but it gains a new element now. The triangle shape is gone and it's replaced by a more rectangular shape. Now, the rectangular face shape is the Mars face shape. It stands for the warrior archetype. So this is a new combination face shape. It is the Saturn over Mars face shape, which is actually a unique combination face shape because it stands for someone with a murderous impulse, as you can see with OJ over here. And I bring this up because I think it might explain some of why the shooter meme has had such longevity over the years. For those who don't know, there's this meme where take a picture of Sam Hyde holding a gun whenever there's a mass shooting, terrorist attack, whatever, and say, police sources have identified so-and-so as the mass shooter. And then inevitably, pretty much every time it happens, some CNN journalist will pick this up and publish it officially. And I think that one reason why people tend to buy into this so easily is because he kind of looks the part, not just from holding a gun, but because he has that Saturn over Mars face shape. He has that O.J. Simpson face shape.
He has that O.J. Simpson face shape. It's so brutal. And that's what I love about physiognomy, is that it's so brutal. The deductions are always cold and logical and clinical. Of all of the formulaic occult kind of sciences or arts, physiognomy, it's the closest to the hard sciences in that you either have this face shape or you don't. Kind of like how in Western astrology, you'll hear women, particularly, they'll do chart reading. They'll be like, there's no such thing as a bad placement. It can all be harmonized. It can all be integrated. If you hear like Vedic or Indian astrologers, they'll be like, yeah, no, your moon is in the 7th house retrograde. Like, you're fucked. You're emotionally fucked. Like, it's a completely different. So I guess you could do astrology in a hard science way like that, right? But typical Western tropical astrology is a lot more kind of open-ended. What I love about physiognomy is it's just so not. It's just so cold and clinical and brutal, and you are what you are. You have the face shape you have. What I do love, though, is that it changes. Whoa. What I do love, though, is like astrology, which, you have various transits. You have a chart that you start with in life. You have your natal chart, your loadout stats. But then there is the transits of the planets through your life and how it relates back to that chart. In the same way, your face changes as you age, right? It changes with your personality. I'm wondering if there are trends, if there are changes that happen in more or less everyone's face over time, and if those changes reflect the personality changes that more or less happen in everybody over time. People generally tending to get grumpier as they get older, getting more conservative as they get older, right? It's not the case for everybody, but then again, not everybody ages like that in the face, right? Let's see, where were we?
And I think subconsciously people can recognize that is the face of a killer. Now, just because you have the Saturn...
I can absolutely ask him about hair and eye color. Hair color, I'm quite up to date with. It's one of the first things I looked into when I started researching physiognomy. Eye color is fascinating. Eye color is very widely and hotly debated. You've seen the ridiculous Indian meme right? Of untouchable Dalits all the way up to Brahmin priest caste of varying eye colors. That kind of shit is retarded. But I do think there's a lot more meaning in one's eye color than, traditional science would give credit for.
Mars face shape does not mean that you are going to murder someone. It just means that you have that impulse, but you can sublimate that into other things.
Just calling Sam a school shooter there.
I know
Ooh.
supposedly a lot of surgeons have the Saturn over Mars face shape. I think in Sam it comes out.
No, but then again, I think it would depend massively on what you're trying to do. So in sidereal or Vedic astrology, that's where the planets actually are, which makes sense if you're doing horary astrology or if you're trying to predict future events. You need to look at where the planets actually are. But when you're talking about a person and someone's psyche, you don't have to be so literal to where the planets actually are. In fact, it's better to look at it seasonally. If you understand what the signs actually mean, right? That Aries is the start of spring, that Taurus is mid-spring, then it matters less where the planets are and more what the Earth is doing seasonally. And I think if you're looking into someone's psyche, if you're looking for introspection, if you're looking for a tool to try and understand your own psychology, you will not get a better read on a human being than looking at their natal chart, Western tropical natal chart. People disagree with me about this. Of course, there are some like India cells. There is this terrible thing that people do in the occult world, a very self-hating, anti-European thing where they go, oh, it's Vedic, therefore it must be true, right? Like it's Indian, so it's exotic, and Indian people have this reputation for being good at spirituality, of having long-standing spiritual traditions. So it's Indian, so it must be dope, right? We have to take it seriously. No, I think if you're doing predictive astrology, if you're trying to work out what's happening with Black Rock next Tuesday, then you look at where the planets are in the sky in a Vedic sense. But even then, if I was going to pull a birth chart for Black Rock, I wouldn't pull a Vedic birth chart. I would pull a tropical Western natal chart, basically.
In his love of combat sports, kicking box fans in his hallway, using that physical, aggressive energy for his comedy, I think is his way of sublimating that. And another thing that has developed sort of around the time that he started to get more phlegmatic in his temperament is that he started to get some more oval-shaped elements in his face shape, especially around the forehead.
So it's like saying, what if somebody has a Jupiter opposite Saturn in their natal chart, right? It's like saying, what if somebody has a Sun cusp Leo Cancer, right? Like you're asking what about the what ifs, about the gray areas. These things tend, I think, to be a spectrum, right? You can have eyes extremely close together, predator eyes, right? The eyes of a predatory animal that hunts, or your eyes can slowly on a spectrum drift apart from each other. So eventually they'll hit Anna Taylor-Joy, and then eventually they'll hit Candace Owens levels of like eye drift, like eye wide drift, right? Look, man, I don't know about you guys, but that's my type of girl. Like I really do select women based on their natal charts and how much they look like prey animals. Like, you know what I mean? Like how much they have that prey face, like physiognomy of like kind of a deer, you know, looking like a lost and confused deer.
It got more rounded, more arch-shaped. This oval face shape is the sun face shape. It stands for the aristocrat archetype. This would show that he's becoming more...
You make a really good point here, man. I think what's happening is the two are getting confused and conflated. So physiognomy, because of its brutalness and because there's a lot of truth and utility in it, and because it's quite prejudiciary and discriminating on the surface, physiognomy appeals to a certain type of chud. Yeah, it appeals to a Chad as well who wants like justification for why they're better than someone else. But quite often, physiognomy appeals to the Chud who needs another reason to say why it's over. And it's like, you know, like it's so the face would seem to be something you can't change. So it's nice and reassuring for the Chuds to look in the mirror and be like, no, my face is because I have negative canthal tilt. That's why it's so over. This is why it's appealing to the looks maxes. And unfortunately, there is this blend, right, between physiognomy, which is an ancient art and has a lot of subtlety and nuance and layers to it, and looks maxing, which is ridiculous, retarded. You're a 7.5. Like, bruh. Just try and explain Serge Gainsbourg to the looks maxing community. Just post a photo of Serge Gainsbourg with one of his many girlfriends on incels.is and just wait to get banned. Just wait for your account to get banned. It's
aloof, stress-resistant, detached, independent, yet gregarious, all of which fit with that new phlegmatic temperament. He is becoming more stress-resistant, more stable, more enduring, in order so that he can stand up to the pressures that life was putting on him at the time, and so that he could work towards building these big institutions,
The problem with the rising sign is it's very energetic, right? How someone is going to be a Leo rising can manifest in many different ways. Sometimes they literally will have lion traits to their physiognomy, big hair, big teeth. Donald Trump is a quintessential example of a Leo rising. And, you see this a lot in people with that placement. However, it's mostly going to manifest in how they come across in terms of aura. So they'll have a dramatic, bold flair to them in how they see the world and in how they are seen by the world. Sometimes, again, it is literal and it's physical, and this depends on the degree, and this depends on how hard it manifests. But yeah, it's nowhere near as concrete to judge someone by their rising sign. I also think, this is a hot take, right? But I also think that modern Western astrology, horoscopes, and the Shaniquas that run the horoscope industrial complex, they are putting too much emphasis on rising signs. I'm not saying that a rising sign isn't important, right? It is important. It's often how you look. It's very often how you are perceived. It's the energetic aura that on the surface, right? A face value you give off to the world, the mask you wear, the persona you adopt in the world, your rising sign. It's kind of important. But this idea of a big three that you can deduce basically and again, this is like GG33's numerology system or any of these things. When you try and reduce something down to make it completely formulaic, you lose the subtlety and the nuance, right? They're trying to make it that the big three, which is the rising sign, the sun, and the moon, can tell you so much about a person's personality, when really, no, that's useful for dating. It's useful for compatibility in dating. Are you going to find someone hot? Are you going to be magnetically attracted to someone immediately? For example, if your rising sign is the same as the girl you're trying to attract, Venus sign, then yeah, sure, there'll be a magnetic pull there that can work in your favor. But that's not going to tell you anything about long-term compatibility. That's not going to tell you anything about the real personality of the person. You would have to look at the big five. You would have to look at Mercury, Mars, Venus, Sun, Moon to really understand someone. Like on a psychic level, psychologically speaking, right? You want to get to know the spirit, the ego, the emotions of the person. You need to look at the big five. The rising sign is going to be so superficial, so surface level. Yes, sure, Donald Trump is a Leo rising and he has lion energy. He's brash, he's bold. He comes across like he doesn't have any filter, and it's all performative, and there's a camp, eccentric flair to it. It's very narcissistic, it's very ego. But this is just a surface placement. Donald Trump gives off a lot more Gemini, right? He gives off a lot more chaotic, frenetic Gemini in his day. So when you're really trying to understand Donald Trump, Leo rising only gets you so far. Again, physiognomy is not that. Physiognomy is literally judging a book by its cover. You're looking at the face of the person, which would seem superficial, which would seem surface level. And then you're drilling down into what that might say about the psychology of the person. You are, in essence, using the person's face as a natal chart. You know what I mean? But yeah, sorry, I've waffled.
Kingly, magnanimous sort of figure. And you can see the best of that really expressing itself in how he tries to elevate people around him. You see
Yeah, it's actually Hellenic. You got to be careful, right? It's like the Arabic parts, like fortune, part of fortune, or the lot of fortune, and the part of spirit, the lot of spirit. There's actually a Greek or a Hellenic, a Greco-Roman part for everything. Part of death, part of assassination, part of this, part of that. But the reason we call these Arabic parts and not Greek parts is because of the fucking Dark Ages. Because in Christendom, all this stuff was burned and destroyed. And like the stuff from Alexandria had to be safeguarded by the Arabs. If it wasn't for the Arabs, we wouldn't even have a lot of this shit. You know what I mean? So we refer to them as Arabic parts. When you really look into it, you start realizing, yeah, it's not so much. Like, it's very Greco-Roman. Astrology really hasn't changed that much from the Hellenistic time to now, which is what makes it, so good. If you're
with Jet Neptune, giving him command over Fish Tank and letting that just be his thing and letting him develop as a person. That's a very sun face, kingly, imperial sort of thing to be doing. And before we move on from the face shape, I would like to say one thing.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not you're inclined to believe me, but there are people whose full-time job is doing exactly this. You should look into the world of corporate astrology. It's a fucking rabbit hole.
About his interface, as you can see between these two pictures, in his youth his interface was a lot larger, which means that at the time he was much more sensitive, receptive, open. But over time it has gotten way smaller, like shrunk down to a real tiny size. Which
do you want me to show you? Do you guys understand what I mean? Because like I'm getting weird, like look, George is into the Innsmouth look. Right? I'm getting accused of like H.P. Lovecraft fetishism. No. And oh, it's Anya, isn't it? Anya Taylor Joy. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. I mean, yeah, sure. Some people say this chick looks like an alien. This is probably this lady probably has like an Aquarius rising, I would imagine, if I had to guess. There is an ethereal kind of alien-y look to this chick. And, you know, actually, she's someone I would probably put on my list to ask Prosopa about. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can share an image with you. This chick. This is what I'm doing, right? I'm looking at someone's natal chart. I'm looking for specific placements that I think will be compatible and harmonious. And then I'm looking at physiognomy in this sense. I'm like, look, this will be someone, now look, I don't know why I think this is hot. It's quite possible that I need to be taken out behind the woodshed and shot in the back of the head. But I just think she's really beautiful. Like, something about this eye drift. Have you seen Ice Age? Have you seen the film Ice Age? There's like a sloth. There's like a sloth character in this movie, Ice Age. That's kind of what I'm in. That's kind of my type. You know what I mean? That's kind of my type. It's hard to explain. I don't want to, waffle on too much,
He's become more stress resistant and aloof over the years. Again, tying into that thing of going from choleric to phlegmatic, triangle face to oval face, to Mercury to Sun. He's going from
move to phlegmatic and move from mercurial jester Joker to the Sun, to a more authoritarian kind of like solar. And actually, if you look at Sam's content, that is exactly what he's doing. That's exactly what he's done.
That very sort of nervous, flighty energy to a much more calm, aloof sort of energy. Okay, so now that we know the general picture of his temperament and personality, we're going to fill in some of the smaller details by studying his facial features. We're going to start from the top with his eyebrows. They are pretty low set, which means that he is a pretty quick decision maker, pretty decisive person.
Thank you, sir. I'll make a note of this.
He makes a lot of quick snap judgments. They are medium in shape. They've gotten longer over the years, which means that he's learned to become more patient, plan things out more, less spontaneous. Now, there is an interesting asymmetry with his eyebrows.
Yeah, it is. So Jung actually took... So Briggs-Myers based their stuff on Jung's personality profiles, and Jung based his personality profiles on the zodiac. So indirectly and over time, it is just a formalized version of the zodiac. The correspondences and connections are undeniable. You can guess pretty accurately at someone's astrological placements if they tell you that they're an INTP, right? INTP. You can kind of get a feel for what it means. If they're introspective and intuitive and thinking, then all of these things are like, okay, that's leaning in a certain direction. If they were INFJ, that's giving Cancer. You know what I mean? Like that's giving the intuitive feeling, nurturing kind of, that's giving Cancer. But it's not one-to-one, obviously. I'd be lying if I said it was a one-to-one. There's been a literal drift. One is a lot more given a lot more credence for some reason, I guess, because there's this veneer of science around it. But what does it really mean to be introverted versus extroverted? You wake up some days and you are outgoing and you want to talk to people and you want to be around people. You wake up some days and you couldn't possibly think about standing in the center of a room. It's like you're an ambivert. You are fundamentally an ambivert on a spectrum that wakes up some days more introverted and some days more extroverted, right? But you'll just have tendencies and you have leanings over time. So it claims to be more scientific. I don't know. I think astrology is extremely scientific. I just think there's so much data there and so few people willing to do the work. I also think it's suppressed. I genuinely believe it to be actively suppressed in the mainstream. Not suppressed by like hiding it and censoring it. That doesn't actually work. But by flooding the market, by oversaturating the space with nonsense, quite frankly, with watered down, reductive nonsense.
Left eyebrow is pretty curved and round, and his right eyebrow is pretty straight. Now, in face reading and in neuroscience in general, the left side of the face stands for inner self, the personal life and private life, and the right side of the face shows us how someone expresses themselves in their public and professional life. This has to do with brain hemispheres, which controls which side of the face. So that left eyebrow being curved is going to show us that in his personal life and in private, he makes decisions based on the feelings of other people. But the straight right eyebrow...
Bro, go back and watch the stream. You clearly didn't see the stream. I'm actually really... How you have not seen the stream where I have the bunch of flags?
tells us that in his public life and in his professional life, he makes decisions based on a much more cold and hard calculus of facts and logic. And we're going to move down to his eyes, which will tell us about his perception,
Okay,
how he
here we
sees
go.
the world and other people.
Lock in the window to the soul. Jack of Faces, who I spoke to previously on this stream, and it's a great interview. I'd recommend going back and watching it. Jack is convinced that the eyes are the window to the soul. Jack is convinced that the eyes can tell you about 95% of a face reading. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Are somewhat small, which means that he's pretty cynical and untrusting. No surprise there. They are bulging. They protrude quite a bit, which means that he is very socially involved, quite outspoken, wants to speak his mind when he does talk, wants to speak and be heard, hates being interrupted, and may have a tendency to blurt things out without thinking. These are great eyes for comedians. You can look at Rodney Dangerfield, for example, because it helps them to speak more off the cuff. Someone with real deep set eyes is going to be much more calculating, always sort of think before they speak. His irises are green, which means that he sees the world in a very dreamy, poetic, imaginative sort of way. These are very artsy, poetic, spiritualist kind of eyes. Lastly, he has a very strong positive canthal tilt, which means that he is very assertive when it comes to putting forward his own interest. He likes to aggressively assert.
The best definition I've ever heard, and I think this is the truest definition, is that introversion the introversion extroversion polarity is fundamentally about where you draw your energy from. So there are people who seem on the surface to be extremely outgoing, charismatic, confident, performative, bold, right? They have this flair to them. They have a persona to them that is magnetic or charismatic or whatever, but who are fundamentally introverts. And there are people who don't seem like they are outgoing at all, who you would be like, oh, that guy's really quiet and unassuming, who are fundamentally extroverts, because it's about where you draw your energy from. If you go into the center of a room, right, in one way or another, in a social setting, in a performance, you're an actor in a play, whatever, and you give energy to people for an evening, how do you feel afterwards? When you finish the party, when everyone goes home, when the lights come on at the end of the night from the club and everybody winds down, are you energized from that social experience? Have you got energy from people by performing for them? Or do you leave that experience fundamentally drained and dead and empty? And only a true extrovert will know what I mean. It's almost vampiric. Psychologically speaking, spiritually speaking, it's almost vampiric extroversion, because you're going out and you're being expressive, and then you're siphoning energy from a group of people, and you're leaving that social engagement, that party, that performance, whatever, you're leaving it more hyped up than you went in. Right? You somehow expended energy, but managed to take more from the people than you gave out. It's a wild. I'm not saying vampires, but there's something vampiric about it. There's something, right? And no, people drain me. The common position, I think, is to be more introverted by this definition, right? But there are many people who are extroverts. He's not coming on the stream. I don't know. We'll have to wait. I emailed him, but we'll see. If he doesn't come, he doesn't come. But I think he's coming.
His own interests, even at the expense of others sometimes. So as a result, he's very confident and rebellious. Now we're going to move on to his ears, which will tell us how he relates to other people. They stick out a lot, especially in his youth. This means that he is very independent, nonconformist, follows the beat of his own drum. There's an interesting shape change in the ears. So in his youth, the middle third bulges out a lot. That shows that at that time, he had a very strong interest in social and emotional pursuits. But over time, if you see the most recent pictures, it actually recedes in the middle third and it bulges in the top and bottom thirds. So that means that he has lost that interest in the social and emotional pursuits, and he's gained a much stronger interest in the intellectual and philosophical pursuits. You can tell from the top third of the ear, and he has retained.
You got it. You completely got it. And actually, you put it much more succinctly and accurately than I could have. But yes, precisely.
A strong interest in material and somewhat hedonistic pursuits. This is not as strong as it used to be, but it's still present. Maybe manifesting less as hedonism nowadays and more of an interest.
Yeah, this is a super common thing, right? Again, physiognomy is very appealing to the right-wing chud. Astrology is the domain of the Shaniqua. Astrology is the domain of the crystal girl. Especially, again, Western astrology that isn't so much concerned with prediction and with actual events, but more with the psychological profile of a person, very easily interpreted as bullshit, right? And that's okay. I'm totally open to that. I'm even open to Taylor coming on here and telling me how he thinks astrology is bullshit. It would be ironic, though, It would be ironic for somebody to be into an occult formulaic art and think that. But yeah, hello now, man. Hello now, man. You are early.
In finance. I know he's a big Bitcoin guy, so that could be it. And finally, the bottoms of his earlobes are straight across, which means that he is quite stubborn. All right, we're going to look at his nose now. It's medium in length, which shows a balance between thought and action. He's not super contemplative, but also not super impulsive. He's got a good balance there between, like I said, thought and action. It is beaked or curved in shape, which means that he is very sensitive and he leads with these very strong and rich emotions. The tip of his nose is quite round, which means that he is by nature a pretty kind person. And the bridge of his nose is really wide, which means that he has very high, intense energy and stamina. Now onto his mouth. The mouth tells us about communication style and appetites, which can be related to food, but generally more so related to material acquisition, sex, relations, that sort of thing. His mouth is pretty small, meaning that he's pretty quiet, reserved, resistant to new social connections. His upper lip is about medium in size, meaning that he has sort of an average level of expressiveness, but he has a wide and low arch shaped upper lip, not that prominent of a Cupid's bow. This is the sun upper lip. It means his communication style is quite cold, distant, emotionally detached, not super smooth talking or seductive. He can be pretty blunt. His lower lip is pretty thick, which means that he is quite in tune with his own internal world of thoughts, feelings, morals, and desires. Lastly, he has pretty big teeth, which means that he has those strong appetites like I was talking about when it comes to acquisition, getting what he wants. He's pretty assertive with that, taking a bite out of life, if you will. And the last thing I will say on his face and physiognomy, we will do a right side, left side analysis. So like I mentioned, that asymmetry can tell us something about how he is in his private life versus in his public life. I'll be using this image here. It's not a perfect example. He's not looking directly straight on into the camera, but I think it's a good one to show the asymmetry here. As you can see on his left side in his private life, he's quite similar to the person he was in high school or college. We see a pretty strong triangle face shape there. He's got a large inner face, curved eyebrow, large eyes. We see a person who's quite sensitive, reactive, quick thinking, very sociable, open, gregarious, friendly. He's sort of that class clown nerd kind of guy that he probably was in high school and college. But then we see the right side. There's a big contrast there. He is much more this assertive, logical, rational, stress-resistant kind of person that he has become over the years. The person he is in his private life, that would not really be the person to go out and do celebrity boxing, for example, or do these big aggressive pranks, or, you know, be punching through walls in the fish tank house or whatever he does. That's more of his public persona. But the guy inside, there's a lot of sensitivity there, a lot of care, and it's all very carefully hidden.
I absolutely love this thing that Taylor does, by the way, of splitting the face in half, because the left side of the face relating to different brain structure, the right side of the face relating to a different brain structure. So simply saying, we all carry around two distinct sides in a very literal sense. Sometimes they're more similar to each other. Sometimes someone is more symmetrical, but he makes two unique faces out of the character. He did this with Mr. Beast, right? One guy he called Jimmy and one guy he called the Beast. With Sam, it's like one guy is called Sam and one guy is called Hyde. Sam versus Hyde. And he does this excellent analysis breaking down the kind of two sides of the person. Really, really interesting.
And under this thick layer of tough guy, meathead persona. Joe Rogan is similar in this regard, if you recall from my Joe Rogan face reading video. The last thing I will say about Sam in general is his phenotype. I want to comment on this. I don't remember where I heard this, but I think Sam is half Irish, half Italian. Irish on his dad's side, Italian on his mother's side. And I think that it's interesting that you can see these traits expressed over time and not so much at the same time. It has been remarked upon that you can see admixture expressed sequentially rather than synchronously, so that someone switches from one pure unmixed parental type to another completely different type. I think you can see this in him. I think in his youth, he looks much more Irish. He's got that Celtic Nordic phenotype. But as he ages up, and especially especially, again, once he hits that 2016, 2017 point, he had a lot of life event changes, so a lot of physiognomy changes from that. And he also got on testosterone replacement therapy, TRT, around that time, so that's going to accelerate those changes. His temperament changed, his face shape changed, his facial features changed, and his phenotype changed. He went from much more Celtic Norded, much more Irish looking, to being much more thoroughly Mediterranean, Graceful Mediterranean, or even Arabid, Orientalid, that sort of Cappadocian type that you see in people like Francisco Franco. He does have that look, especially in that Hyde Wars era of the late 2010s, sort of during the Trump-Biden years. Now I think he has sort of reached a happy medium. He looks more French or English, which is kind of that in-between point between the Nordid and Mediterranean extremes there of Irish and Italian, which I think sort of symbolically shows that he has sort of reached a Hegelian synthesis in his personality between the disparate elements, and he has reached a sort of happy medium now, which is a great thing to see, that personality development and that personal growth there. All right, well, I hope that was informative. I hope that you learned a lot from this about face reading in general, and maybe some about Sam and his secrets there, how he works, what makes him tick. Leave a comment below. Let me know who you want me to do a face reading of next. I've got a big list, but if you leave a YouTube comment, I can add it in, or if it's something I already have, I can bump it up to the top. Do that one next. I value your input a lot. Let me know how you like the video. And no, you are not crazy. I did upload a version of this video before, but I screwed the audio up on that one so badly that I just had to scrap it and re-record it from scratch. If you want to learn more about this stuff or get a face reading done for yourself or someone you know, check out my website, prosopainsights.com. I post
Dope website too. Very, very professional looking. Very, very, like, the stuff he offers on there does seem pretty reasonable, and fucking interesting. Like, who doesn't want to have their face? Well, okay, people who don't want maybe to deal with that level of introspection. But I think for most people, the idea of having your face analyzed, honestly, is very appealing. It's a very, very interesting, like,
articles there. I try to have a lot of information up about what I do, how face reading works, that sort of stuff. You can send me a message on there and I can get you some face reading information for free. This has been...
But full transparency, guys, he has gone dark on us, so we don't know if he's coming or not. I've sent him an email, I've resent the link, but we are not on Twitter terms. We are just on internet, like, email terms. What time is it? I mean, he might think it's at 8 instead of 7. That could be a whole mind fuck. I don't think so. How much did he pay me? Just 10 grand. Nothing major. He just paid me like 10 G's to do like a little, you know. The whole Discord watching. Shout out to my goons. What? Whatever Discord this has been shared in, I'm greatly appreciative of it. All right. I really appreciate you sharing this. Although there is a chance that he doesn't roll through. Let's watch one more of his videos, because I am enjoying this. I'm not going to lie. There is a lot to learn here from this guy. And I am fascinated. This is kind of helping me in a weird way. It's kind of helping me formalize my line of questioning for where I'm going to take this. It's got to be Epstein, right? Okay, look, guys, I didn't want to have to do it to you, all right, on a Wotan's day, on a Mercury day, on a Wednesday. I didn't want to have to do it to you, okay? Because it's right. He could have given us the cold shoulder / Spanish elbow. He could have come on here, seen me talking about astrology and been like, oh, no way, I'm not being associated with this nut job. Highly unlikely, but who knows? You have to choose, guys. You have to let me know. And think about what I'm making you choose between here, okay? But Jesus Christ or Jeffrey Epstein? Jesus Christ or Jeffrey Epstein? Which one do you want? All right, look, guys, can I get 1s for Jesus and 2s for Jeffrey Epstein? It's a hard choice. It's a hard choice. I'm not saying it's easy, guys. I never said that this was going to be an easy stream, okay? I need 1s for Jesus of Nazareth, Yeshua Mashiach, and another one for Jeffrey Epstein. 2 for Jeffrey Epstein. Both Jewish. both Jewish. Let's see. Whoa! The hot take from Magic Reptile King here. That's so interesting. 3. All right, look. It looks like Epstein's winning, guys. I'm not gonna lie. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah, as a young, black, rich man, look, because I'm young, black, and rich, I do really appreciate you guys like sending me this kind of love and support, because it's hard out here to be like a young, black, rich man. just like live. You know what I mean? It's a struggle. Every day is a struggle. The struggle is real. Charlie Kirk. Wait, you're going for the outside curveball? You want to see Charlie Kirk? Charlie Kirk does have a fucking fascinating face. Yo, 3s for Charlie Kirk. If you can't choose between Epstein and Jesus, let's go in for Charlie Kirk with a secret number 3. But right now, I'm not gonna lie, guys. It looks like you guys prefer Jeffrey Epstein to Jesus Christ. I don't know what that says about you. I don't know what that says about number 3. All right, fuck it. We're going in. I'm choosing now, and I'm choosing Jeffrey Epstein. No, I'm choosing Charlie Kirk. I can't choose between Jesus and Jeffrey Epstein. The choice is too hard, guys. I'm sorry. I fucked you all. I rug pulled you. Your 1s and 2s were ultimately meaningless. It's Charlie Kirk. All right.
Hello everybody and welcome to another celebrity face reading. My name is Taylor and today we will be looking at none other than the tiny faced man himself, Charlie Kirk. Now, this guy is a very big political influencer in American politics, especially on the conservative side of things. He's well known, of course, for his campus advocacy through his group Turning Point USA, and nowadays he's especially famous for doing these change my mind style question and answer sessions with liberal and left-wing students where he totally owns them with facts and logic. It's the same sort of conservative gatekeeping kind of stuff that we've seen time and time again in American politics, but Charlie Kirk seems to take it to the next level. I see this guy as a true political professional, which is why he's so interesting to me. That and his face is just weird, and you guys thought...
So we're getting a little bit of a window, I think, into Taylor, right? Prosopa Insights into Taylor's politics here, which is kind of fascinating. He doesn't really go full political on his channel, I've noticed, but you do, based on who he does face readings on, and you can kind of see what crowd he's adjacent to. I also think his channel blew up massively after doing a Nick face reading, right? Nick Fuentes face reading. So this is kind of interesting. And oh my God, does Charlie Kirk have a like incredibly... His face is so easy to caricature. It is so... Charlie Kirk's face is grotesque. And I don't even mean that in like a horrible way, like it's ugly. I mean, it's grotesque, like a kind of house of mirrors, like a kind of like a weird, distorted, surrealist. Charlie Kirk, this guy comes to you in a dream. You know what I mean? And he tells you where you went wrong.
So too. This video is being done in response to a comment by Naraki Kiza. Thank you for leaving that comment. And if you leave a comment under this video telling me which celebrity you want me to do a face reading of next, you may just get to choose the topic of my next video. So without any further ado, let's get right into it. Now we're going to start off by taking a look at his phenotype, which is the physical expression of his genetic inheritance, his ancestry, and his race. Now, he has a somewhat discordant look. It's obviously rather odd, even from a racial level. He doesn't clearly express one single phenotypic type. Now, he's clearly brachycephalic, that is, his head is broad proportion.
How much of, like, straight up, how spurgy do you have to be to with zero irony, say the sentence, he's clearly brachycephalic. It's clearly this guy, oh, duh. Obviously, this guy's clearly brachycephalic. I don't even know what that means. And that's why I find this guy so fascinating. He makes these really highbrow concepts that have been lost to time, quite frankly, from people like Cesare Lombroso, from people like Lavater, right? He takes these concepts and makes them relatable in a way that you and I might be able to have a fucking clue what he's talking about. And he does that by couching it in race first. He always says to you, like, right, this is the phenotype of the person. This is the group they come from, the genotype, how it usually expresses itself. And he goes right down into the minutiae of, like, not just this is a European Caucasoid or whatever, but this is an Alpinid person with a Brun, all this, and he starts from something you understand, which is race, and then within that goes, right, but this is how the race typically looks, and then this is how the individual looks relative to that race. He contextualizes it within what you already understand, which is a fucking really, really good way. Like, I have to say, he makes it very, very relatable
to its length. So he has sort of an Alpinid look there, somewhat continental European.
See what I mean? Alpinid look, right?
But it's definitely not a pure Alpinid. Many of his features actually seem to be of the Celtic Nordid type, which is the Nordid type particular to the British Isles. Now, this is especially interesting because the British Isles are pretty much clear of Alpinids. They have some broad-headed Dwarby types there, but by and large, that Alpinid element is missing there. And so this look that Charlie has is not an entirely unfamiliar one, but it is an extremely, and I would say exclusively, American look. Alpinids and Celtic Nordids don't really mix in the wild, so to speak, of Europe, because, of course, Alpinids are limited to the continent, Celtic Nordids are limited to the British Isles.
Ayo goes, I think I'm an Alpinid. Ayo goes, I think I'm an Alpinid. Am I an Alpinid? Guys, can you tell me what you think my phenotype is in the chat? Am I like an Alpinid or what? Like, look, this is the side profile. Side profile. Is it? Alpinid. I don't know. Like, I literally have no idea. That's a level of spurgery like I couldn't really get into. I'll be honest with you. I think there's like 3 races, right? I think really, truly, there's like 3 races: Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid. Yeah, there's millions of like fractional sub-ethnicities or whatever. But I'm like an old school, like it's Caucasoid, Mongoloid, Negroid. I haven't got time. I just don't fundamentally. But yeah, let me know. What do you think I am? And do you think Charlie Kirk is Irish? There are a lot of people in the chat saying he's a quintessentially Irish face. I wouldn't see that. But yeah.
Never the twain shall meet. Except, of course, when, say, British Celtics come to America and they're followed soon afterwards by German or French Alpinids, then they meet, mix, and you get the Charlie Kirks of the world. So a bit of an odd look, but we'll give him some credit here. He's got a very uniquely American phenotype. I'm sure he would like that as a pro-American rah-rah conservative. All right, with his phenotype out of the way, we're going
There you go, Charlie. Okay, you have an American face. All right, Charlie. One thing I've heard Taylor talk about before, actually, he did it recently in a comparison between J.D. Vance and Gavin Newsom, is he said that J.D. Vance has an agrarian peasant phenotype and that Gavin Newsom has like an English aristocratic old money kind of phenotype. And he was comparing the two. He's really, really good at that. He's very, very good at relating face to place, right?
to get into his physiognomy and personality, starting off with his side profile, which will tell us about his temperament and inborn characteristics. As you can see here, he's got a high forehead, chin that's level with said forehead, and an obtuse angle to his jawline. Those are all traits of the choleric type, including even the kind of browner undertones to his skin.
Bro, I need it because when he shows it side by side like this, when he shows the forehead and chin stuff side by side, yeah, okay, it makes sense. But I am yet to get to a point where I can look at a face and be like, oh yeah, sanguine. Oh yeah, that's so obviously a sanguine face. I just look at his face and Charlie Kirk's face, and it's sort of just, I pick up aura a lot more than I pick up like the actual mathematics of his face and degree of proportion and stuff like that, right? It's interesting.
Also a choleric
I'm
trait.
wondering how long you have to train yourself to get to this level of like mastery, where it's just like, or even if he is even at that level, if it takes him a while too, and you have to actually sit down and work out what Charlie Kirk is, you know.
As well as his body type. This means that he's willful, bossy, and commanding. He's very energetic. He can get a lot of work done. He loves working, needs very little sleep, kind of no nonsense. May come across a bit uncaring or unempathetic at times, but that's just because he's so focused on his work. He's a positive pessimist, which means that he very clearly and acutely sees all the problems of the world, but this doesn't discourage him. It actually encourages him to solve these problems. But he's not a completely pure choleric. His forehead is pretty high, but
I do have a really smug. People have told me that my whole life. People have told me I have a very smug, punchable face. I feel you, bro. I think that's real. And yeah, look, Celtic, Nordid, Albanian. I could definitely be Albanian. Hey, like I could definitely be from like some kind of Khajiit. Yeah, legit Khajiit thief, Khajiit potion thief. Yeah, real. Clearly North Atlantid, right? Okay, interesting. Yeah, see, this I can understand. I do have a mercurial face shape. I can see that. I can see that a lot easier than I can say Khazarian, right? Yep, fair. Pseudo-Semitic, okay, Elvish phenotype, yep, 5 races. I am kind of a bunch of shit going on, right? There's 12 races. Yeah, there is 12 races, okay? And you're a Libra. That's your race, all right?
it does have a significant slope to it.
I mean, race just means type or kind. The actual word race just means group, collective, type, or kind. This is interesting. Let me wheel it back up a bit because he's actually teaching us here how to read that face.
Completely pure choleric. His forehead is pretty high, but it does have a significant slope to it. This is more of a sanguine forehead. This means that his intellect is a bit quicker and a bit more impulsive and impatient. Now, not to slander the guy or anything right off the bat, but I'm reminded of another person I recently did a reading of who also had a choleric temperament with a sloping sanguine forehead. And that was, of course, Adolf Hitler. Also someone very famous for their political advocacy, public speaking ability, and whatnot. But as we'll see, Mr. Kirk has a very different personality on the whole from that. However, one very significant trait that they do share in common, other than their temperament, is their face shape, which stands for their personality archetype. They both generally have a
Such a
Venus
flex,
face
holy
shape. That's
shit.
that diamond or heart face shape. And that means that Charlie Kirk, like Hitler, is very concerned with social causes, with loving and being loved. Charlie Kirk wants to bring warring parties to the negotiating tables and make deals. You'll see that Donald Trump in his youth actually had a Venus face shape because he was the big deal maker. Now he has more of a warlike Mars face shape. That happens a lot to people as they age and their face sags down. They become more Martian and warlike. But Charlie Kirk for now still has that Venus face shape. I think his Venus elements express themselves first in advocating for his ideas and wanting to get people to talk, get people discussing, doing all these big events. I mean, Venus bringing warring parties to the negotiating table. I mean, going on to Gavin Newsom's podcast. I think Charlie Kirk is always a guy to reach out an olive branch. In most cases, he does have his limits, and those are very calculated, as we'll get more into later. But his face is not a pure, perfect Venus shape. It's a bit asymmetrical. His left side shows a bit more of a Saturnian element, a bit more of a trapezoid shape. This means that by nature and on the
I love this. The Saturnian trapezoid being the accountant, right? The overseer, the kind of like nitty gritty details, punishing with like obstacles and restrictions and bureaucracy and red tape. I love the idea that the Saturnian phenotype is the accountant phenotype. Like, how much do you think Taylor knows about astrology? There's no way you can get into the four humours and you can get into this level of like planetary correspondences without knowing a little bit about astrology, right?
inside, he is much more reserved, meticulous, diligent.
Or perhaps it's just that when the science of physiognomy was being created, right, by people like Lavater, by people like Lombroso, they're making it alongside other formulaic sciences, and everything is couched in this. Everything is couched in astrology. Everything is couched in the humours, right? So they're just reference point. They're just a way of explaining it, perhaps. I don't know.
Very detail focused and very oriented towards order and making order. The Saturn face shape is the most natural face shape for the choleric temperament, and so like the choleric temperament as a whole, it's very work focused, very serious, very no nonsense. And so we can see that in his personal life and in private, he's a much more serious person than he puts on in public. He's very work focused. I imagine he's probably some kind of workaholic. But then we can see the right side of his face does have that mostly Venus shape, but it's a bit squarer, or rather more rectangular. That shows an element of the Mars face shape, which stands for the warrior archetype. That means that his public persona is a good deal more aggressive, assertive, and combative than he is on the whole. No surprise there, he's basically a professional debater. Last thing on his face shape is that if you look up at his forehead, he has a very prominent widow's peak. This is a great sign. It is a sign that he has a lot of charm, and if you believe in that sort of thing, good luck. And that has clearly done him well, as his organization and his work is pretty big and successful. But why has he succeeded in the way that he has? What is it that makes him tick, and why does he do the things that he does? That's what we're here to answer. We're going to start out with his facial features and go through and figure out what's motivating him and how he does the things that he does. We're going to start off with his most infamous facial feature, his face itself, specifically its size. It's so tiny. His face is so little and itty bitty small. Why is that? Well, the inner face shows.
If you know anything about graphic design, right, logo design, corporate design, Charlie Kirk has a lot of negative space on his face. Like, here's the text, here's the font text, and then all of this is like dead space, like negative space. It is fascinating. It's a very unique face.
Sensitivity. The bigger the
sensitivity. Okay, the bigger the okay, interesting.
interface, the more sensitive and reactive someone is. If someone has a real small interface, like Charlie Kirk, or like somebody like Bill,
because I guess the eyes convey emotion the most, the mouth secondary. So the whole expression, right, of the face, the whole reaction of the face in an emotional sense takes place right there in the center. And he has a tiny little fucking squished up face. So not overly reactive, not overly sensitive.
Bill Clinton, that means that they are far more aloof, detached, and stress resistant. They can very easily compartmentalize and detach from situations and sort of be of two minds, be doing one thing, but mentally off somewhere else, so they aren't taken over by stress. I think this tiny interface should set off alarm bells immediately, because that means that he is a person who is very easily able to detach from a situation and, like I said, be of two minds, possibly do a lot of doublespeak. This is probably not that unusual for a professional political actor and political propagandist, for lack of a better word, but it's something that should be noticed. And I think, ironically, the extreme smallness of his interface.
Yes. Happy birthday to you and to any other Virgos, because of course it's Virgo season. Wait, is it? Yeah. Well, congratulations and happy birthday, man. Of course, I'll be doing a Virgo video. I'll be doing a video on all the signs. I'm just going to do them in chronological order. Next up is Gemini. Next up is me losing half of my followers for declaring Gemini to be the astrological master race. It's so over. It's so over.
May be a great advantage to him because it insulates him from the sort of stressors that normally take other people down, especially when combined with that choleric temperament. It's going to make his work ethic wonderful, especially when you combine it with those deep set eyes that show that he's a calculating person who generally thinks before he speaks. But he's not entirely without reactivity. He isolates himself from the outside world and from stressors, but once you get to him, he is somewhat reactive. That's because the bridge of his nose is very narrow, which stands for sensitivity, and it has a prominent bump, which stands for reactivity.
Phrenology, another fascinating dark art, which I genuinely believe has been suppressed by the deep state and corporate interest. Phrenology is tricky, though, because like you're going to have to get someone in to physically touch the bumps on your head, right? A lot harder, I think, to do a kind of surface level phrenology reading. It's Leo season. I was born on a cusp. Gotcha.
So once you get in past that tiny interface that is able to block things out, compartmentalize, and cope, and really get to him, he's not going to have a good time. I mean, you can look at how he reacted to getting owned by that debate kid at Cambridge, I think it was, or when a caller asked him about Nick Fuentes and his face started twitching like he was a robot glitching out. Weird stuff. So far, not looking too good for Charlie Kirk, and it gets even worse when you look at his features related to communication. Now, he's a professional communicator, but nothing in his face says that. He's got a tiny mouth, which means that he's quiet and reserved by nature. He's not an extrovert. He's very introverted. He also has thin lips, which means he's not
It's not
expressive.
just Virgo. It's not just Virgo season right now. It's peak Virgo season. The planet, literally, the sun is slap bang in the middle of Virgo. It's not going to get more Virgoic than it is right now. Interesting things you may also want to be aware of. Mercury is currently in Virgo. If you want to do something communicative that involves precision, orderliness, categorizing things, meticulous attention to detail, now is the time. Okay, Mars is in Libra. It is not a good time to execute on those battle plans that you have. Okay, the moon is in Capricorn. Great time for emotional stoicism. Okay, there are other things happening, astrologically speaking, various conjunctions and stuff, but nothing that's like overwhelmingly exciting. Venus is in Leo. Great time to propose. Great time to fall in love.
Especially that upper lip, quite thin, which shows that when he's communicating, he's not telling you what he truly thinks or feels deep down. Now, you can make that work sometimes if you have a prominent Cupid's bow, which is the...
Lawrence, we're completely aware of your perception we're completely aware of your perception. But you know what's funny? I'll come up for this. You know what's funny is traditionally, various occult sciences were the domains and preserves of different genders. There really is, truly is such a thing as women's magic. But unfortunately, it's not what you think it is, Lawrence. Women's magic is spell work. Women's magic is trance work, dance work, moonlight rituals, right? Men work a lot more with the sun, and men work a lot more with precision, with augury, with horary stuff, with astrology, with divination, actually. Divination, traditionally, if you look back through Greco-Roman times, through antiquity, if you look at the Norse tradition, divination is actually the preserve of the men, right? Other stuff is the preserve of the women. But I just want to be real with you, and women do tend to, I'm not going to say women suck at divination. Some of the best divinatory practitioners I've ever met, right, have been women. But women tend to bring a lot of intuition and emotion to places where sometimes you need to be a little bit more structured and a little bit more formulaic. Physiognomy is, of course, a great example of one such formulaic occult kind of thing. But yeah, I just completely dismiss this idea that astrology is women's work. And I think you do yourself a disservice as well by dismissing it as such.
The Venus lip that shows that your communication style is smooth talking and seductive.
Venus lip. Where do you think this comes from, dude? Who's Venus? Who's Aphrodite?
Very silver tongued. His is not. He has a weak Cupid's bow. He has a sun shaped upper lip, which shows that his communication style is cold, detached,
Absolutely.
and emotionally distant. If he wants to smooth talk someone or convince someone, he has to either think about it a lot and calculate it out, or just follow a script.
I don't know what you mean, A. You're going to have to clarify. A.O. Jord, why do you get info? Why do you get info on all this woo-woo stuff? Do you mean where did I get info, or how did I get into this? Or do you mean like, why am I talking about this instead of talking about other stuff? I don't know what you mean by your question. You're going to have to clarify. I want to answer, but I don't know.
Which we can see he does in a lot of his debate performances. These are very clearly pre-rehearsed, written out, push-button responses that he pulls out for the typical liberal arguments. And why does he need to do that? Well, look at the space between his tragus and his antitragus.
No, male manifestation works, right? It's not that you can't. It's not like a woman can't read a natal chart and a man can't do manifestation. It's just that they are fundamentally different in their essence. And if you look back through history, there is a real gendered split in magic and in the dark arts. There's some stuff that is the domain or the preserve of women, and some stuff that's the domain and the preserve of men. Even when it comes to spell work, if you read the PGM is a collection of notes that belong to a guy called the Theban magician, who was a practicing priest who would have moonlighted as a magician, like offered his services as a magician, right? His spell work is completely different, right, from the kind of more feminine spell work that you find in other places in antiquity, of which history is replete. You can find so many examples of both, but they are different. They're structured different, and the masculine stuff is more ordered. It's more you say this and you do this and then you get this. The feminine stuff is more chaotic, right?
It's tiny. That shows a lack of good speaking ability. All right, so he's not by nature a great communicator. Why is he a professional communicator then, and how does he manage to pull it off? Well, there's a few different factors going into here. One is the fact that in spite of his lack of speaking ability, he's drawn towards that world. He has a very strong social orientation. Look at his upper eyelids. Even though his eyes are deep set, we can tell that he has relatively thick upper eyelids, which shows a strong need for intimacy and connection with other people. This is further reinforced by his weird gummy smile. Look at that right there. Now, there are several variants of a meme that have been floating around the internet for a few years that say something along the lines of girls with
no joke. I used to have a really gummy smile as a kid. I used to have a really, really gummy, like you couldn't even see my teeth when I smiled. It was just gum. And then over time, like as I hit puberty, my kind of jaw extended and I got a jawline, and then my teeth like shifted and changed. I also had braces, which probably changed like the actual structure of my jaw as it was developing because I had them quite early. But yeah, I used to have a very gummy smile. And so I'm very interested in what that says about you. Girls with gums like this always got a fiance somehow.
Gums like this are always married or always have a fiance, right? And I've noticed similar things in my own life. They have a certain vibe about them. That's because people with little teeth and very prominent gums are desperate for love and affection. They worry about not being loved enough.
Yeah, I was definitely way more of a people pleaser when I was a kid. Like that's true.
So with women, this expresses itself as leaping into a marriage at the first sign of approval and affection. And for a guy, it looks like becoming a professional political pundit. If we want to continue with the line of thought that girls with gums like this always have a fiance, I will say that sometimes it does seem like Charlie Kirk acts like Trump is his fiance, or even abusive husband, always making excuses for him, running cover for him. And it is probably his job. He is probably getting paid for it. But I do think that
Taylor has messaged us. He will be joining us shortly.
Does have a genuine affection for and connection with Trump. And this isn't just a dysfunctional coping mechanism. It's part of his natural...
No, I'd love to see the natal chart. I'd love to see a natal chart, Lawrence. I'd love to see if you really do have aspects in there that are fundamentally disagreeable. And if you are, or if, you know, like, it's really, really interesting to look at the ocean traits, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, and to apply those both to physiognomy and to other stuff like astrology. It's really, really interesting.
Disposition. Look at his ears. They lie really close to his skull. He's a very dependent person. He's not an independent thinker or doer at all.
The part I have mastered, I think, is this idea of facial thirds. I have mastered the idea that the upper third relates to intellect, right? Look at Charlie's bulbous light bulb kind of shape of the upper third of his head. Big brain, right? Big brain nigga. If you look at his eyes, they're very close set together. So it's predatory, right? And then everything he's saying here about emotion that he's getting from the eyes and ears, the middle third of the face relating to emotionality, and then the lower third of the face relating to willpower. I would actually see Charlie as having like, it's quite a square jaw, but it's kind of a weak jaw. It's interesting.
He's very dependent on these social networks that he's built up, whether personal or professional. And look at his ears again. The middle third bulges out, which shows that he has a strong interest in social and emotional pursuits.
Right. Middle third bulging. So it literally is related to the size of that third of the face. If the upper third is bulging, big brain. If the middle third is a bulging, sensitive young man, right? If the lower third is bulging, willful, assertive, dominant, alpha Chad, right?
More so than the intellectual or even material ones. So he's socially oriented, but again, he's not a good communicator. Why did he keep going through with it?
That fits very well, actually. MK's interpretation of gummy smiles fits very well.
So look at his eyebrows. They lie straight across his brow, and the bottom of his earlobes are very flat. Those are both strong indicators of stubbornness. All right, he wanted to connect with people. He wanted to be socially involved. He wanted to work for some big social cause that he believed in and be a fighter and advocate for it. And he was stubborn enough to go through with it. So how is he able to thread the needle on being able to communicate when it's not his nature? Well, that's because for him, as I mentioned previously, it's all an intellectual exercise. It's all very calculated and within his mind. He's not a stupid or unintelligent person. He has straight eyebrows, which means that he is a logical, rational thinker who makes decisions based on the facts. He's got deep set eyes, which means that he's very calculating and withdrawn, thinks before he speaks. And he's got a straight nose generally, which means that his general disposition is steady, cool-headed, and rational. Now, the final ingredient for Charlie Kirk's career success is his action ability. It's not all intellectual for him. The debating part is, but the actual organizing of TPUSA and all of his events and his collaborations, that requires a very action-oriented persona. And you can see that he has that. Of course, that sanguine forehead gives him a bit more of a pep in his step in terms of acting quickly and organizing. That more Martian rectangular right side of his face gives him a much more aggressive, action-oriented, ready to fight, ready to jump into things sort of public persona. And on his facial features, you see that he has short eyebrows. That means that he likes to act. He's not too much of a planner and he wants to jump into things.
Of
and
course,
his nose
it's exactly
is relatively
when
short.
I go to the loo that our guest decides to join us. Taylor, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time, man. Let me just get rid of this. Can you hear me all right? I think he's frozen. That may be a profile pic, or it may just be, I'm going to remove him and I'm going to add him back in, see if that makes a difference. I told you guys, didn't I? I told you this stream would be plagued by technical difficulties. Awkward. Oh. Not only is he here, but he's moving. We're 2 for 3. Buffering. Yes. Yeah, no thanks. No, I'm out, bro. He got a cold read on me. He got a 3-second cold read on me and dipped. It's just like, nope. Not that negative cancel tilt. Hell no. Guys, can we have some evil eye emojis in the chat, please? The only way this is going to work is if we use collective magic with a K, if we use our collective will to try and force the demons that Palantir have sent, right, back out of the connection. I need evil eye emojis, guys. I need evil eye emojis. I need crosses. I need snakes eating their own tail, all that kind of shit. Let's remove the old Taylor and bring in the new Taylor. Hello, sir.
Greetings. Good night.
You can hear me. Hey, wait, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
You can hear me and I can hear you. Let me just sort out these horrific screens. Okay, that's a bit better. So just given that we're talking about faces, I thought we might want to see people's faces a little bit up close. Firstly, how are you? And I don't mean that in the fake British way. I don't mean like how are you, and I mean literally how are you doing?
I'm doing well. It's a good day. It's a packed day. Daughter's with grandma today, so
okay.
I am I put all my consultation calls with clients and interviews today. I'm doing another interview after this one, actually, not immediately after, because I would die, I think, if I had to do back to back. But yeah, this guy called his channel's just like Raymond's Thoughts.
Okay, I'll give him
he's just like some little just a little like vlogging channel. He's got like 25,000 subscribers, so decent following. Yeah.
You're also blowing up now on YouTube. I mean, you're always doing well on TikTok, but your YouTube's going crazy, no?
Yeah, it's doing good. I've plateaued now, which is normal, which is the sign that that's when you start to diversify more. So
Right.
I've got sneak preview for everyone who's popping in for the live. My next video is going to be, I already had it recorded. So I threw it over to my editor for this coming weekend's video. Is going to be on phenotypes again. It's going to be another phenotype analysis. A lot of people like the Alpinid video I did, so I'm doing another one of those.
Super self-indulgent, but am I an Alpinid? Is that,
turn your head to the side. Nah.
No.
You're that's what I thought. You're Mediterranean.
Interesting.
Are you from?
I have 1/8 Ashki, 1/8 Ashkenazi ancestry.
Interesting.
So that yeah.
Well, that could be anything. Ashkenazis have they've assimilated all kinds of phenotypes over the years.
True. And I think the average Ashkenazi is like 40% European or something. So when you say you're 1/8 Ashki, you're really like 1/16 or whatever. I don't really know.
Yeah, they're all like it. They all just look like Italians or Slavs. Some have some do keep Semitic traits.
Right.
Like if you go to the Middle East, if you meet Arabs, and then look at Jews, you're like, oh, you're like a pale Arab.
100%.
Like the heavy eyelid and the nose, of course.
They keep personality traits that are similar as well. Like they've retained that kind of, that's absolutely true. So you seem to contextualize everything within race first, which is a really good starting point. Like you seem to say, this is the race traits in general, the phenotypic traits of that group. And then you drill down into the individual. Is that just for reference, or is that a actual methodology?
So part of it, a big part of it is methodology. So if you get on my with my paid clients, if you get the deluxe package or above, which has the most popular package, it's a good general overview. I start with the phenotype. I do that first because phenotypic physiognomic traits you have to judge based on phenotype. Let's say explain what we're talking about here. Phenotype are the physical signs of your genes. So you have the genotype, which is your actual DNA. The phenotype is how that's physically expressed in you. Contrast that with, that's race, that's inherited ancestry stuff. That's your collective belonging. Your individual traits, what makes you unique as an individual within that population, those are your physiognomic traits. So that's, when I use those terms, I use those, that's the context I'm talking about.
Because I remember watching your Jeffrey Epstein thing, and you described first the group that he comes from and then how he differed from that group, and that was like the best way for someone like me who doesn't understand things like sanguine and caloric or whatever. It was just the best reference point for
exactly. And that's why I do it. So I start off with that, and then I can judge relative to whatever the phenotype is what it is. So for example, like black people on average, people of African descent on average, have shorter noses. So there's going to be a much lower bar for a black person to be considered to have a long nose in a meaningful sense, right? I'd say I have like a medium length nose, maybe for my phenotype, probably about the same as yours, for Gray Saw Mediterranean type. But if an African descended person had my nose, it would be a long nose for an African, and so they would be thoughtful, contemplative, patient within their phenotype.
Got it. How did you get into this stuff? You don't seem that old. You seem like early 20s, like kind of maybe. How old are you? Maybe you're just aging well. Like
I'm about to be out of the early 20s bracket. I'm about to turn 25. So
okay, so you're like a young man, and you've just amassed this insane depth and wealth of knowledge in this subject. How did you get into it? Do you have like a tutor, or who did you learn from?
It's called autism. You should look it up. I mean, literally, it's literally just like autism is my superpower. So let me think about it. Okay, so it starts. I've known about both of these things roughly. Like I have a distinct memory of like 2015, like first finding out about like babies' first racial anthropology, right? Nordic, Alpine, Mediterranean.
Yeah.
I saw the graph charts on pole that were like, these are the different shapes of the skulls, and
right.
That stuff. And so I have a distinct memory of telling my dad, I was like, I'm more like a Mediterranean, you're more like a Nordic. And he was like, okay, that's cool, I guess. He's a handyman. He didn't care.
Yeah. No concept of how you could turn this into like a career or like and that's insane.
No, I have no plan on that for sure. So then it really started 2021. I was in the Middle East. I was studying Arabic. I was talking to Bedouins out in the desert, and they started talking about this thing Al-Firasa, which is the Arabic school of physiognomy. Every major culture and civilization has its own school of physiognomy because it's so inherent and obvious. And they all agree on a lot of stuff. They have different focuses. So like Chinese face reading is all about, it is about fortune telling, wealth, that sort of stuff. They're always looking for like a mark to show that you're going to get a big inheritance or something.
Right.
Indian face reading is
Chinese,
a lot about health. They have a lot of like health neuroses there. So it's like, are your humours out of balance? Is your diet bad? And then Arabic Islamic face reading, and Firosa, is a lot about imperfections, because it takes like an imagined ideal man, which would probably be like Muhammad if you think about Islamic theology.
Muhammadan like archetype, and then how do you deviate from that, right? How are you not like the prophet?
It's Islam, it's submission to a certain
So norm. if I had to guess, similar to our Western tropical astrology, our Western physiognomy that comes from people like Cesare Lombroso and Lavater and stuff like that, that's going to be more about the personality. That's going to be more about the psyche in a Western sense. Like, okay,
perfect. Yeah, you're on the ball with that. Exactly.
And where do you start when you start looking on poll, and then you must start realizing like, okay, some of this stuff has actual weight to it. I can actually start to discriminate. But
so I heard about that. The idea was floating around in my head, and then I noticed something. There was a friend, another student with us, and I noticed that during debates, arguments with people all different religious backgrounds, all different kinds of Christian, generally from the South. So he was like a Reformed Baptist debating like Catholics and stuff. And I noticed that during arguments, he would be really nitpicky and insipid. And he would, pardon me, I got a contact issue. There we go.
Oh, you're good.
Apologies. And he would like be like looking up a point on his phone. And then like minutes later, after the conversation had totally moved on, he'd be like, yeah, it was what I said. So I noticed that.
Really pedantic and like,
That's pedantic, exactly. And I was like, that's really similar to this thing this other friend of mine did. And I was like, you know what? We always made fun of that friend for having really close together eyes. This new guy has close together eyes too. Like, I wonder if there's a correlation. And I was like, wait, well, let me think of the opposite. Because if there's a correlation, and if the opposite makes sense, maybe there's something here. Far apart eyes would be not detail oriented, not pedantic, big picture, low disgust impulse.
Thinking, all right.
And I thought about, and there was just another girl from the Arabic program. Actually, I went on a couple dates with her. It didn't work out. She was cute, and she had the far apart eyes, and she was super.
I'm really into that thing myself, personally. I think that's like a really attractive trait. I have no idea why I'm into it, but I really like it as a.
Well, here's why, and this is something we can maybe get into more later. Attractive features are attractive because they stand for attractive personality traits in the face. Right. Like a positive canthal tilt is attractive. Why? Because a positive canthal tilt shows confidence, and confidence is sexy. Negative canthal tilt shows that you're like a people pleaser, you're a pushover. Obviously, that's unattractive on a man or a woman.
Right.
But so she had, in the wide set eyes, it's like tolerant, spacey, accepting. Like it's a very like passive, stereotypically feminine role where it's like, okay, honey, whatever you say, which that is more. Like,
and that's exactly the kind of women that I'm attracted to as well. Like, service level, that's like really.
I always win for that. My wife actually has close set eyes, and it's less like immediately pleasant, I guess, in the sense of like you can't just like get away with anything, right? It's not just like a free ride. But yeah, I think it's objectively better for life because I have the wide set eyes, so I just want to lay back and go with the flow. But she will like get on me about like getting stuff done, having standards, and that's another general thing that I think of as like balancing traits with matchmaking and physiognomy. That's something we can get into, but I'll finish my story about this.
Please,
So I look up close set eyes physiognomy. I knew the word, or face reading, or one of those terms. And I find a little blog site that says that, like what my friends and I had independently determined. It said, close set eyes stand for a high disgust impulse. Wide set eyes stand for low disgust impulse. And that was like we said to each other. I was talking about this with some friends. We were like, well, that's what we're talking about. That's just in different terms, right? If you're tolerant, you have a low disgust impulse. So your big picture focus, and vice versa. So around this time, if you go on my Twitter, it was created around July 21. So I was still in the Middle East when I made it. And I just start posting about this stuff because I'm like, this is neat. I'll share it with people. And it gets momentum and people start following and talking about it. And over the years, I do it kind of off and on the side. People eventually start asking me to like read their own face. So I'm like, sure, I'll analyze yours. The whole time I'm doing this, I'm watching videos about it. I'm taking my own notes in a little notebook about what I'm observing about people I know. Like I see a trait shared among a bunch of people, and they all share this one personality trait as well, and it makes sense to fit for that. Like I imagine someone with that physical trait, and I think, okay, that makes sense, right? There's a lot of intuition with it, and then I record that. So eventually, I start doing readings for people. Eventually, it gets to be too much. I'm like, too many people ask me this stuff. I'll say it's $20, and people will leave me alone, right? And then I get more people asking for it, right? So
yeah.
I do that off and on. I'm not on Twitter anymore because I get really burnt out with Twitter.
It can be draining, I imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, especially post Elon Twitter. Like I'm glad it's liberalized and it's objectively good for the conversation and culture. The AI slop, the Indians, and I don't want to get too much on the Indian hate bandwagon because on Twitter I had a lot of like fans and supporters who were like North Indian guys who were like more into the I don't know, South Indians can be like Tamils have something going on. They have like a weird, unique culture and a crazy religious occultic heritage going on there. So there's something in all the parts, but you know what I mean? It's just like
I know exactly what you mean. Yeah. And
Everyone
there are
knows
many. Also, there's a phenomenon of people on Twitter. And I mean, I'm talking by the thousands of young Indian men pretending to be someone they're not, which I'm sure happens everywhere. But this is like a market phenomenon. Particularly young Indian men pretending to be women or pretending to be trad right-wing based accounts or whatever.
Exactly. You see an AI generated Greek statue profile picture, and it's like, you hit them with curse Vishnu. Can you curse Vishnu?
No, I can see why that would be absolutely fucking draining for you. Okay, so I can see how it's evolved over time into something of a practice, and I can totally see why people are coming straight to you for face readings. But when you're doing it, is it now moved from less of a formulaic thing to more of an intuitive thing? Have you got to the point now, for example, where you meet someone and you are deductively like Sherlock Holmes reasoning these physiognomic things about them without even really knowing how you're on autopilot at this point, basically?
Yeah, it's still pretty conscious with it. So like I said, I am actual autistic. I don't think I'm diagnosed, but like I might as well be. Like all the symptoms, high functioning. Like I was never I don't know, but it's like every like stereotypical thing. Like I didn't realize I was until I met my wife, and she was like, I think
you had a frame of reference.
She introduced me to like her mom, and her mom was like, there's something off about him, and I was like, no, I'm not autistic. And then I had a flashback to like elementary school, having to go to the nurse's office, sitting out of all the loud events because I didn't like it, not playing with the shaving cream because I didn't like the texture, not eating a lot of foods because I didn't like the texture, being a brony, being huge into Legos, being into Star Trek, like every stereotypical thing. So I was like, oh, okay, wow. That I get it. All that to say that I'm actually not the most intuitive person. Like social cues and stuff is difficult. That's why I was so drawn to this, because I was like, it's the key. I've always been super into personality typing systems for that reason. A friend of mine once, she once said to another friend, Taylor loves nothing more than putting people in boxes. And it was Myers-Briggs. I dabbled in Enneagram. My mom's big into that.
What do you think about astrology?
Astrology, I'm agnostic on astrology, honestly. Like I've gone back and forth with it. There have been times I've gotten into it, and I've made like these big spreadsheets of like astrological signs and the correlations with the elements and the polarities and stuff, because that stuff I already know from reading Evola on Hermeticism.
Right. Well, there's so much astrology in physiognomy too, right? When you describe a Saturnian or a Martial face shape, you're really talking about planetary archetypes.
Well, exactly. And I was recommended this by you ever watch meme analysis on YouTube?
Yes. Yeah. God disc. Yeah.
Yeah. God disc. Chris Gabriel. He messaged me on TikTok when I was first sort of getting momentum. He was the first like actual other creator to reach out, which is crazy because he's like my favorite YouTuber.
Your stuff's great, yeah.
Yeah. I haven't talked to him. I talked to him the once. We had like a big conversation, a big call. Just he wanted to learn about physiognomy. I was like, sure, man, get on a call with me. And he recommended me a book called The Astrological Body Types by a Mrs. Judith Hill.
Yeah.
And that one's good. What it is the system that I learned, which is called morphopsychology. It's the French school of face reading. Started in the 19th century, moved on to the 20th. It was basically aligned with it. So she used the same like planet or zodiac terms, more or less, but the faces and personalities correlated to what I had learned. So she was like, oh, it's the round face and the body type and stuff like that. This is the Cancer body type.
Yeah.
In a sense for these personality traits. And I was like, oh, that's a moon face. We're just talking about the same thing using.
No, it's actually crazy. The preponderance of like Cancerian women, especially with the Cancer rising or like multiple Cancer placements who have a lunar face, who have big tits because Cancer rules the chest. Like it's insane. When you start noticing these correspondences and stuff, it really does. I mean, you can go full schizo with it, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's
my
there's a, but then I'd like make some correlations, and then I wouldn't see much. Like I would find some correlations, but then I'd make these charts, and I wouldn't see much correlation. But then you look into more like natal chart stuff. It's more complex, and like I have for a while. I was practicing when I first started reading practicing typing people based on appearance. I'd like to, if I could master that, if there's anything to that, I'd love to, because that'd be an amazing party trick.
That's fascinating. I think
I was able to correctly tell that Kim Jong-un was a Capricorn and that Carl Sagan was a Scorpio. Those were back to back. I was looking through like celebrity profiles, like it showed up like on a zodiac sign, like what's their sign? I just
I think it's great when someone like you, who already has the wealth of expertise in physiognomy, starts applying it to other like esoteric fields. I think it can be nuts what happens. Likewise, I think AI is going to do numbers in fields like physiognomy in the future with facial, recognition and reading and stuff like that.
It already is. There's lots of studies that they've been doing. I think my first YouTube video, I talk about this, where I go through the scientific studies that back it up. And a lot of them are basically feeding faces into an AI, and AI is able to predict your political orientation, your sexual orientation, your big five personality traits, your level of religiosity, sexuality, all these things from the face alone. And
the one that really makes me fascinated is criminality or morality, more specifically. The idea that there could be some AI facial recognition run by Palantir that just scans you before you go into the grocery store and goes, no thanks, the risk of you stealing is way too high based on your jawline or whatever. Like, have you noticed those morality traits being so hard and fast? Do you think you can deduce someone's morality from their face?
I don't. So what I've learned, morphopsychology as I've learned it, which is from, let me get the book here.
Probably a good time to ask you guys to drop a like on this.
When I first really started learning it, it was from a YouTube channel that I'd seen in 2016. I saw this guy do face readings of Trump and Hillary, and that was in my mind for years. And then it was reawoken 5 years later when I first got into this. So this book,
cool.
Face Reading Secrets for Successful Relationships by Peter Resnick.
Fascinating.
So he is... he's a Jewish American psychiatrist from New York, and he is like a licensed psychiatrist. Like he has a practice, but he dabbles in a lot of the new age sort of stuff. He likes yoga and that sort of stuff. And so he practices morphopsychology, and he's had a little YouTube channel for a while where it's real low profile. All the videos are like maybe 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 views, and but I went through and I watched all of his videos pretty much, and I took my own notes. And when I got back to the States, I bought the book and read it all the way through, marked it up. But you can see this. It's got kind of the cheap Amazon cover. Like it's the same. If you ever had a copy of like Bronze Age Mindset or anything, it's the same.
Yeah. Plastic Amazon cover.
Yeah, you'll see it's all beat up because this has been on 3 continents it's crossed a few oceans.
Shit, you've gone back to front making notes. Yeah.
I take this everywhere I go. At this point, I really don't need it that much because I know it all, and I've built my own system based on, because there's a ton of other physiognomy books you can read, and I've done so, and there's way more I need to read. I need to read Lombroso, right?
Cesare Lombroso and Lavater as well. I didn't know if you'd read Lavater yet or not, but this is like
Lavater.
Old medieval stuff, which I guess a lot of this is derived from, like initially.
Yeah. Lavater.
But I mean, like I've read Lombroso, for example, and he taught one thing I really want to ask you about is atavism and animals and people looking like animals, because I think this is fascinating. But you seem to intuit, like, for example, the 4 humours. Even though I've read Lombroso, I can't do what you can do, where I can look at a face and go, oh yeah, sanguine. Like, I have to sit and then look at the face and then go to a thing, like go to one of those 4-box things that says, oh, this is sanguine, and then relate it back to. I can't intuit that. Like,
that's how it starts. That's what I was doing at first. Right. You just have to practice. It's all. Listen, I've been doing this for 4 years at this point, over 4 years now, and so you just got to give yourself time. I can, like, I watched a lot of Peter Resnick's videos, and I was like, okay, I made sort of notes, and then I, as I watched them, I was able to go, well, I don't know if I really agree with that assessment. I think he's more of a Mercury phase here, and especially just going through life and making notes on people the more distinct the like face shape or facial feature, personality trait, the better. And that's how you do it.
Can you speed run us through the 4 humours quickly and what they even are?
4 humours derived from, of course, ancient Greek theory of humours, 4 temperaments, I should say, based on the 4 humours, which are yellow bile, black bile, phlegm, and blood. That's not super important. That just gives us the names of it. So we've got these guys here.
Right. Yeah.
So we've got
that's
choleric,
hella interesting.
phlegmatic, sanguine, and melancholic.
Oh,
now,
fascinating. Okay.
In morphopsychology and the French stuff, which he uses, he talks about it in English, but he uses the same terms. They call it choleric bilious because it's from bile.
Oh, bile. Yeah.
From to lymphatic because they take the perceived role of phlegm or snot and they apply it to the lymph system, which it's the same. It's
kind of makes sense, like drainage of like sinuses and stuff. Yeah, build up of mucus.
Elemental water. The phlegmatic has the power of absorption and endurance, and then melancholic they call nervous for obvious reasons. They're very nervous. They're mental.
Yep.
And then sanguine they keep the same because it's French, so sang is still blood.
Oh, blood. Yeah.
So very physical, active. So the quick and dirty is that you can kind of divide it. If you imagine a 4-square thing, actually,
that one you just showed was one of the cleanest, clear-cut examples I've ever seen. Often they're very muddy and hard to tell, like because it's an actual. Well, you have to.
That's why I have my own images that I made that have my little logo on them that I use in my videos and my my analyses. So if someone buys one of them, I'll compare them to that. And you make like sort of a caricature so that you can show the features.
Way easier that way,
Yeah. So you can kind of think of it as, let's say the x-axis is active versus passive. Make it like a political compass. Y-axis is optimistic versus pessimistic. Positive.
Which again, like not to get too woo-woo and esoteric with it, but obviously relates to hot and cold and dry and moist in an elemental sense.
Exactly. It's just the same thing in different terms.
Okay. Yeah, that's wild. Okay, what other principles would you say are core principles other than the 4 humours?
4 humours.
The facial thirds thing seems to be quite a big deal. Like the thirds.
Facial thirds is pretty important. It's a good general guide. It can't tell you too much in terms of details. The way I know it is that you got forehead, so top third, middle third, which is like eyebrow to the bottom of the nose. Sometimes they include the philtrum in that. And then lower third. Top third is intellectual. Middle third is social emotional. Bottom third is material. Right. Now, this also applies to the ears. So, and this is a much more useful one. I use this all the time with my clients and with my videos and stuff. If you look at someone's ears, sometimes they'll bulge or recede in certain parts. So, for example, sometimes I get a client in the middle. Or
in the middle. They dip in like kind of like a hourglass thing. Weird.
Yeah. So hourglass type ear. So like something like that, like this.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
So that shows, you've got an interest in intellectual matters, in material matters, but kind of a disinterest in social emotional stuff. Or for example, my priest has these they're not quite elf ears because it's a rounded sort of bulge, but they come out really big in the top third. And he's a seminary professor, a remote seminary professor.
Super high-minded guy, and like
his sermons are so like verbose. He uses words like numinous and emanations and stuff in his daily sermons. So that's facial thirds. That's a good one. The way I conceive it, the broad overview, you have the temperaments. That's the baseline that has mostly to do with physical stuff, energy, has a lot to do with your diet, preferred climate, that sort of stuff, how much sleep you need, work style. Then above that, think of like a pyramid sort of, or building a house. Above that foundation, you have the face shapes, which stand for the archetypes. That's the planetary stuff. So you think of it like 4 elements, planets / zodiac. There's about 11 face shapes generally. Some people differentiate them into 12.
Yeah.
Sometimes they split up Mercury into a short Mercury and a long Mercury, but they're not really that different. There are general principles for analyzing the face that we could talk about, like shorter and broader is more material, longer, thinner is more intellectual, spiritual.
Yeah, makes sense.
I just put up a TikTok about that. And then above that, so those are the broad strokes of the personality. That's the general archetype. Above that, you have the facial features, and that's the most. Think of it like the small little brush strokes, where that fills in the details of how does this temperament and face shape, how does this temperament and archetype work together to create a gestalt whole person.
So if you take just one of those details, for example, if you take just the philtrum, which being the little dip above the lips between the nose and the upper lip, what does a philtrum say about it? But like, how can you use, if just in isolate, if I showed you just a snapshot of a person that was just a Hitler moustache thing, like what can you take from that?
Yeah. So each, something I've discerned over the years, and it's taken a while because a lot of these books, whether it's Resnick, Fulfer, Roberts, these more, a lot of it is the more recent, like 80s and beyond, physiognomists who are much more into the practical face reading. They talk about things, they'll talk about the same thing, but using different terms, because one focuses on business, the other is she cares about relationships and romance. So you have to kind of get in the middle of that. Yeah. And I've also independently determined from looking at all these that different parts stand for different faculties. Eyebrows are decision-making, eyes are perception, ears are how you relate to other people, like listening, Nose is general action and behavior. They call it the pillar of the face. It's very central, very important. It's the first part of you that meets the world. So it's how you sort of introduce yourself and act out into the world, project yourself. Mouth is, of course, bifunctional, because the mouth is literally bifunctional. It's communication and appetites. And I love that. Okay. Chin can kind of just stand for general personality and vibe.
Yeah.
And then philtrum, to your point, is seen, most of the stuff I've seen about it views it as sort of like a store of energy or an energy indicator. Eyebrows and philtrums are similar in that regard. So, yeah, for example, someone with a long philtrum is said to have they're said to be inclined towards motor activity. A big one that I've seen is the width. So someone with a really tight and narrow philtrum, very strong moral impulse. It's principles over pleasure. Someone with a very broad and wide philtrum, pillars they call them, are far apart. It's the opposite. Very pleasures over principle. Strong sexual impulse as well.
Okay, interesting.
So you can sort of think like a tight wound person, like a prude.
Yeah, as in like literally together. Okay, interesting. And this comes with the whole pursed lips thing as well, which is its own. I mean, what do lips tell you about someone?
Lips are generally about expression. So there's a difference. So upper lip is communication and relation with the outside world and other people. Lower lip is the same for yourself, for your inner world.
Got it.
So most people have a thicker lower lip and a thinner upper lip. They're more at peace with themselves and their own sense of self than they are with others. Now, it's hard to see with my mustache and with me talking, but I actually have a...
pronounced upper lip.
I have a fuller upper lip than a lower lip. This means, as my wife puts it, it means that I overshare. And that it's not as bad as it used to be. My upper lip has grown a bit. It used to be basically non-existent because I was very out of touch with my own sense of self. I didn't know what I wanted. I was very passive. I couldn't really, I had feelings, but I didn't really register them.
Yep.
You know, my parents got divorced. I visited my grandpa and he sat me down. I was like, I want you to talk to me about how that made you feel. And I just sat there. I was like, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't care.
So yeah, you're autistic for sure, bro.
Oh yeah, that's like an autism thing. And but then I'm actually more comfortable talking with other people about stuff than I am like sitting and brooding.
So the outwards rather than the introspective, and it's that scene.
Now most people are the opposite, where they're more comfortable with themselves than they are with just the outer world in general. And then the shape of the upper lip can tell you more specifically like how someone communicates. Are they more smooth talking, more blunt, more blurry and imprecise? And then a neat one are the corners of the mouth. And so this one is a really nice, clear example of physiognomy because you can see really clearly the action mechanism. So when someone has a neutral expression, their face the corners of the mouth go up. They're optimistic because it's muscle memory. The muscles have been built up there because they've been smiling a lot, and vice versa for downturned lips and frowning. Sometimes it's asymmetrical, which brings us to the final main part of the analysis, which is asymmetry. Asymmetrical faces. This one is neat because this one is agreed upon in every school of physiognomy around the world, and the FBI actually uses this asymmetry. It's called facial chirality, chirality, like the Breaking Bad season 1 episode. And it applies to both physiognomy and just general body language. So when someone is disingenuously expressing an emotion, they will express it asymmetrically. There's a marvelous picture I put up in one of my videos of Harrison Ford.
Which side shows you the real expression?
The left side. And the right side is the
I feel like this is such a cheat code to life. Like that's fucking fascinating. Exactly. Okay, brilliant. Yeah.
So there's a picture of Harrison Ford at Comic-Con, and he's doing this weird smile. And when you cut the image in half, you see that his right side is smiling. It's like, hi.
Yeah.
Like this. But his left side is like, he's like scowling.
Completely doesn't want to be there.
I hate nerds. Yeah. This is Harrison Ford. He doesn't want to be there. So, the FBI uses that. Like, there's a wired video from this FBI body language analyst where he's like, well, you see on this guy, the left side, the right side, he's trying to look smug in the mugshot, but on the left side, he's very cold. So we see that he's hiding something there. So in general, the left side specifically, more particularly, is for the private and personal life. The right side is for the public and professional life. So that applies to both facial expressions and facial features. So let's say, for example, go back to the mouth. Someone, they're in a picture, their mouth is like this. Up on this side, down on this side. That means that they're optimistic about their personal life, pessimistic about their public professional life, or maybe more so, they're optimistic in private or in close, intimate settings, but they're pessimistic about the public, people as a whole.
Right, and you can see that conflict and inattention literally running through the face, basically.
And this has to do with the reason this is because of brain hemispheres. Rush mentioned. So it's confusing because the hemispheres are switched. Right hemisphere of the brain controls the left side of the body, vice versa. So the right brain, which controls your left face, is very intuitive, natural, spontaneous, immediate, and honest, open. The left brain is very calculated, mathematical, very. It's sort of like Freud's superego, right? Where it's society's expectations put upon you. And that controls the right side of your face. So that's why there's an asymmetry there. You have different sides of the brain controlling different aspects of your life, in charge of different sides of your body. You're into the esoteric stuff. Palmists, chiromancers, they say the same thing.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So your left hand is what you're born with. Your right hand is what you have. I haven't gotten super deep into the palmistry. There's not an intuitive element to it, like with face reading, because humans are wired to see faces. Like, there's obviously something very important about the human face.
100%.
We're programmed to look at it and examine it and have it tell us stuff. Palms, it seems a little more arbitrary. I will say, the one thing that gives me pause with palm reading, one, it's you can tie it into the same action mechanism as face reading with genetics, epigenetics, hormones. In theory, it's the same sort of beast.
Yeah, you use the hands the way you use the smile mechanism, right? Like there's going to be folds if you're an artist that would be different if you work with your hands than it would be. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's not necessarily a too esoteric an element. Like you don't have to, contact spirits or anything to do like a palm reading, right? But the one thing I'll say is that, so my left hand, growing up, basically my whole life, no fate line either hand. Left hand still has no fate line, none going down there. Right
the right
hand,
one developed one over time.
In the past couple of years, I got a fate line.
Weird, suggesting that the actions taken have crystallized certain timelines now that weren't wild, fucking wild.
I know, that freaked me out when I noticed that. I was like, the other thing, I have a simian line. I don't know if you heard it. So the head and heart line are one thing.
Right, they're fused together. Yeah,
I've never met anyone with that. It's pretty rare. I looked up people who had it. There's not too much of a like strong correlation. It's not like everyone who has it is like an inventor or a serial killer or something. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Like Tony Blair and Hillary Clinton were two who had it.
Shit. Okay. So was it like pioneering kind of Machiavellian traits, or what is it? What is actually supposed to represent?
Maybe it is like Machiavellian, like hustler, because Tony Robbins has one in his right hand, but not his left. So he's that way professionally, not his personal life. I've always kind of vibed with it because it's a unity of head and heart, like intellect and emotion and will are all one joined stream, and that's how I think. I say that I'm not super intuitive, like. I'm not good socially. I do have good intuition. Correct ideas will arrive to me all the time, and I will have to work backwards to figure out like why it's correct. My knowledge and will and stuff comes before the inner monologue and the logic.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay. I wonder what that is. I wonder what that is elementally. Like for me, I look at someone's natal chart, right? So I would say like, does he have more, like less air, for example, more water, more fire, like more emotion, more spirit? But that's okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Are you cool to look at some faces now? So like if I pull up some faces on the screen, let's go. And then we'll like kind of look at them. And then obviously guys in the chat, if you want to put your questions to Taylor, obviously if you're a member, I'm more likely to look at them or stick a Q in front of it. So I know it's a question. I'm more likely to look at it. Maybe even if we have time at the end, we can look at Taylor's natal chart. This is someone I wanted to show you first and foremost, because I think this is a fascinating individual. This is someone who I can't get a read on in terms of their personality. They kind of move and morph, and I really enjoy them as an entertainer, but I don't understand what the hell is going on, right? So I would love hold on. I'll need to take a screenshot. Give me a second. I'd love your interpretation of this person's face. I'm talking, of course, a lot of people in the chat will know about Candace Owens. We were talking earlier about this prey eyes thing that people have when their eyes have this drift in them. And obviously I'm trying to find a photo. I'll give you this one because it's got a slight angle of 45 degrees. You'll probably be able to infer more of a side profile from this. But Candace, what do we make of Candace?
Let's see. Okay. Candace, the sister. What's good, sister? Okay, first off, so what I see is a prominent chin. It's probably sanguine. I don't know, like she's smiling, so I would guess maybe sanguine with a choleric forehead. Definitely like a natural, like very spontaneous entertainer, outgoing sort of person. So she's got a short nose, even for like an African descended person. So pretty action oriented, not super contemplative, like pretty spontaneous on the fly. Deep set eyes too. So she is, even in spite of that, she's pretty calculating. She thinks before she speaks, more so in her private life. Her right eye is kind of protruding more, but, and for these wouldn't be deep set eyes. This is a good case study. These wouldn't be deep set eyes for like you or me. For like, we have deep set eyes, but we have like European deep set eyes. They're very deep.
Got you. Again, relative
Africans
to
on average have more protruding eyes, same as Arabs. So hers count as deep set eyes for that. You say, so what it is, I think she's got wide set eyes, big picture, tolerant, a little spacey, not a details person.
If you were looking to imply her politics, right? For example, she came into the world of politics. Her first foray into the political world was setting up this website where she was trying to catch people for being right-wing back when she was a liberal, and then she 180'd really hard, I think, when something happened. Do you think you can imply someone's politics from their face? Because when you say she's got wide eyes, tolerant, maybe that would imply a certain level of liberalism?
Generally, it does, but it's I told this to a client earlier today. He was asking, how can you have different face shapes all in one religion? He was a Roman Catholic guy, and he was asking, how do I fit into this if I'm not a spiritual type or whatever?
Valid question.
And I said, a church or humanity as a whole, it's a big party. There's room for everyone. It's a big plane. There's a seat for everyone. There's a spot for everyone in the roster. And same with the political movement. I think a lot of unless you're talking about like political radicals, where there is more of a phenotype. Specifically, when you look at mugshots, when people are radical enough to be getting arrested, you get a specific phenotype, and it does differ white versus left.
Interesting.
Everyone's seen the Antifa mugshot compilations where they all look like freaks. And some
definitely.
of that is like they're actually on drugs, so like there's something with the eyelids that you can tell there.
True.
A lot of it is just discord, so like disharmonious asymmetrical features, so that shows just internal conflict. There's a strong asymmetry in the face. That means there's a strong asymmetry in the life, their personal versus professional life. And then with right-wing radicals, a couple years ago, someone on Twitter pinged me and had me analyze these pictures of the Patriot Front guys in Idaho. They got arrested. You ever hear of those guys?
Tom someone or other,
Thomas Rousseau. Yeah, he's a
Rousseau. That's it.
Yeah. So he especially, but all of them, they had old phenotypes. I noticed the physiognomies weren't that odd. They were pretty standard, but the phenotypes were archaic. What I mean is that if you turned the photos sepia, they would have fit right in the Civil War or the Old West.
Got you. Yes. Yeah.
It's old heritage Americans. And if you're a Brit, so and you guys have analogous sort of things out in the West. You've got swarthy Mediterraneans hiding out in the Welsh mountains. You've got towards the west, especially west of Ireland, you've got these Cro-Magnon Brun types sort of hiding out from the Paleolithic. In America, we have a sort of analogous thing in our trailer parks in Appalachia, where you meet some of these people, and they will look like they're from an older time because they're working hard like people used to in the 1800s and 1700s. So they've got the leathery, wrinkled skin. But you just look at even the skull structure of these some of these trailer park ladies, and they look like they could have been like a 1830s Quaker or like some sort of pioneer settler. And it's odd. I think a lot of it has to do with maybe it's like the microplastics. Maybe it's intermixing with other types. So like these are Scotch-Irish people who haven't mixed in with, say, Germans or French or
and just maintained that true, pure like phenotypic expression.
It's just an old look that hasn't been reduced by urban living, evolutionary pressures from there. Anyways, that's a big separate thing. In terms of Candace Owens' politics, the other thing I'll say is that she does seem to have a positive canthal tilt. So assertive, confident, rebellious,
caring less about how she's perceived and more about like asserting her.
Yes, she puts her own interests often ahead of others.
Okay, fascinating. Let me show you another one here.
That's my read on that. I wouldn't be able to tell if she's like specifically conservative or liberal, which makes sense because she went between the two.
Talking of people who hop across the fence regularly, what do we think of this guy? I think he has a really fascinating face. Obviously, genetically, he's Greek, so it's like a very Mediterranean. There's probably other things going on in here as well, but it's an interesting face, Milo.
Yeah, I'm getting some more pictures of him pulled up. So he's
for sure, yeah.
He's Atlanto-Mediterranean. which is a very widespread phenotype. That's why he doesn't look super Greek. He's not like Stavros Halkias, who is like this fat
got you. Yes,
rug salesman.
So Stavros would be the more archetypal Greek phenotype, right?
Yeah, modern Greek, not Hellenic. All right, it's not Alexander the Great. The Hellenes of the Odyssey are extinct by and large. The Pelasgians are there now, and they speak Greek, and they're like, "Oh, we built Parthenon. We was gangs," and no,
we was gangs.
It's like the meme where it's like my ancestor, like looking at the statue. That's not to crap. I know, like I had actually a Greek customer recently. I know a lot of Greek guys, and I love them. You know, they're fellow Christians, fellow Europeans, but there is a discontinuity between like Hellenic and then Roman era, Byzantine. They wrote about this actually. Quick digression. One of the big ancient writers on physiognomy is this guy called Polemon, like Pokemon, but with an L instead of a K. Yeah, and Polemon, he wrote a lot on physiognomy, and he wrote on different methods of it. And he talked about the physiognomies of different races and what that says about them. Obviously, like a good Greek, he said that Northern Europeans were too far one way, Africans were too far another way, Greeks were a perfect middle.
Perfect in the middle,
yeah. But one of the things he talks about, which I found totally by accident, I was just trying to read his physiognomy stuff, is he talks about he was, I believe, early AD, so living under Roman rule as a Greek. And he was talking about, he said, Greece is now full of Libyans. Thrace is full of Syrians. He was talking about mass migration from the Middle East and North Africa into Europe.
Wow.
And he was saying the old Greek type, it's hard to find now because it's been filled with all these Middle Easterners. So a lot of people attribute it to the Ottomans, right? Especially the 1920 population exchange, where Greece took all the Christians, Ottomans took all the Muslims. That's why you have a lot of
and just fundamentally changing the Greek phenotype over time.
Yeah, that was a big one, but it's been going on for a while. So Greeks, anyways, with Milo, Greek is there's a lot of stuff going on there. I'm seeing a gap between his teeth that shows he does not care for society's standards generally. Short eyebrows stand for spontaneity. The gap between the teeth, kind of, his mouth is closed in a lot of these, but kind of big teeth as well. That stands for aggression and avarice. It's like you get what you want. If you know American politics, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has really big, strong, wolf-like teeth.
So there's like an animalistic. I've noticed a lot of these things to relate to atavism, right? Like, and Lombroso talks about this a lot, how the criminally delinquent man has like an amphibian frog-like face with bulbous like eyes and stuff like this. Okay, interesting. There's a few traits like that. Like I've noticed an attached earlobe, right? So like most animals, an animal doesn't really have earlobes. It's just his ears that kind of stick out straight. Yes, yeah.
Maybe elephants.
So
and
a person with a literal connected earlobe, that obviously has a meaning.
I've intuited over the years that stands for I've read different things from different physiognomists. I've intuited that stands for a kind of wild animal intuition. So they're very spontaneous, quick on their feet thinkers. They can do things kind of rashly.
That's so interesting because in the Chinese, like, I don't even know whether or not this would, I suppose it would count as physiognomy. There's an implication, for example, when they make a Buddha statue in the Far East,
big earlobes.
They always big earlobes, right? It's a sign of nobility and spirituality and this very like high-minded thing. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and that's also big earlobes. Also, chin. I'm cribbing this from a Twitter screenshot I saw years ago, but there's something significant in the fact that the Latin word for chin is mentum, and the fact that animals do not have chins. And I don't know exactly what it is, but there's something to that. Now, it's interesting that in physiognomy, the recessed chin stands for the more mental, melancholic, nervous sort of type.
Right.
But it's possible that you could interpret that as, no one really has no chin. Like if you're a human being, you've got a skull shape, you still have a chin. It could be interpreted as the positioning of the chin, right? So a sanguine person has a chin that's out. Their personality, their sense of self is out, expressive into the world. but a melancholic person, it's recessed. They're drawn in, kind of like a turtle.
Okay.
And then choleric or phlegmatic, it's more balanced.
Yep. There are people in the
Milo.
Go ahead with Milo. Sorry.
Yeah. Last thing with Milo, just before we move on. He's got these sunglasses on a lot of these. So there's some sort of he's insecure about his eyes. This is Casey Neistat syndrome. And what is it? There's something discordant in the eyes. They're really deep set.
That's fascinating hearing you think out loud. And you're like, your first thing you notice is that there's something off, but you're not quite sure what it is, and then you drill into it. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, really deep set eyes. So he's very calculating. I don't know. Some of these older ones, they look more. They can bug out at times, but they look mostly. I don't know if these are deep set or protruding eyes, but he does seem, and a lot of these, he does seem very distant, very calculating. One more thing I will say is that so we talked about the facial thirds and the ear thirds. He's got kind of big earlobes, and so kind of contrary to the Buddha statue thing, I found that big earlobes stand for a pretty materialistic person.
Hanging down. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, that's
fascinating. Now Milo changes his appearance a lot, right? Like you say, he hides behind the sunglasses. He dyes his hair, for example. What does someone's hair and eye color tell you about them?
It's generally it acts sort of like almost like a tint over the energy as a whole. So we'll take it piece by piece. Hair.
Yeah.
Hair is psychic antenna. So emotional, psychic, sensory signals are taken in by the hair.
I never thought of hair as antenna on top of someone's head before. That's fascinating.
Yeah, and this isn't original to me. This is a pretty common New Age talking point that I happen to agree. That's why they grow the hair out long. Longer hair, more signals, bigger bandwidth. Shorter hair, less. Why do they shave your head when you enter the military? Part of it is to keep the hair out. But there's a practical reason. But it ends up also giving the benefit of making you more cut off, less sensitive, and receptive to psychic signals. There's a weird dichotomy with the spiritualist, right? I talked about this on TikTok, and I said, well, long hair is more psychically sensitive, more receptive to the emotions of others, more in tune with the world and its energies. That's why Christ is depicted with long hair. That's why hippies had long hair. People said, what about monks? Buddhist monks, Western monks, they all cut their hair. Well, being a monk is the opposite of that. It's about cutting yourself off from the world and its energies. Yeah. And so there's lots of stuff going with hair with that. The color is just a tint. They generally correlate to the archetypes and the face shapes. So red hair is Martian, of course. Redheads are a little extra feisty. Yeah. Darker hair is a bit more practical, familiar, intimate. Blonde hair is more sort of aloof, solar, celestial, distant, and similar with eye colors. That has to do with more perception and relation to other people. But like darker eyed people tend to be more interested in family, closeness, intimacy. Light eyed people, especially blue eyed people, pretty distant, pretty kind of cold and aloof on the whole. Think Swedes or Norwegians. Right. Compare and contrast with like Italians, even within Europe, average eye color on the, alone can determine a lot of that. And green eyes are for someone who is kind of emotionally needy, but has generally a pretty spiritual outlook. That's the most. That's the that kind of ties into the eye color chart meme, which I knew about before it became a thing. Like 10 years before it became a thing, I remember being on Pole, seeing that.
When I first saw that, I obviously thought it was retarded. I have like not A10s, but like pretty. I mean, you see my pupils rather in a dark room, but I have like blue eyes. Then I definitely think there's some weight to what you're saying in terms of blue-eyed people and blue-eyed peoples racially being more cerebral. But I've never seen a more jarring and controversial meme than just the one where it's like, philosopher kings, that kind of retarded triangle of like. I mean, there's so many examples from history that disprove that. But there is I think what's interesting about it is it's got there's a grain of truth in there, right? There's like a grain of truth in there about how people perceive the world. And then obviously you can take these things and kind of blow them out of proportion. This one is a fascinating one. This is Dr. Armin Hillman. There are not many photos of this gentleman on the internet, but this is a pretty clear photo of his face. You should be able to kind of take something away from. He has what I would call fascinating physiognomy. Tell me what you make of this man just on a surface level.
He looks like he's apologizing for something. He looks I don't want to jump the gun, but maybe you've primed me for it by mentioning Lombroso, but I feel like there's something criminal here. We've got a short kind of snub nose. There's standing for some impulsivity. It's hard to tell because of the quality, but he's got looks like 2 creases, but I can for sure see a deep vertical crease by the right eyebrow.
Double creases between the eyebrows. Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Okay, so double creases. So that there's a lot of different interpretations for that. The one I abide, I talked about this in my Epstein video. It talks about him. That he has frustrations in both his personal and public life. Frustrations and worries. Stubborn, flat eyebrows, attached earlobe. So he has that strong intuition. Canthal tilt seems neutral, but the eyebrows are kind of negative there, so they give that kind of like, oh, I'm sorry, kind of impression.
Yes, interesting. Like apologetic.
The mouth.
Kind of vibe.
He's got a pretty strong cupid's bow, Venus upper lip shape, so he is a smooth talker when he does communicate, and he's not completely closed off there, but there's something weird and asymmetrical with the mouth. It looks like the left side of his mouth is like way longer than the right side.
Yes, yeah.
So that would mean that in his personal life, he is much more talkative, open, avaricious, better appetites in terms of enjoying things in life. Right side, he seems much more quiet, reserved, closed off. I'm kind of eyeballing it with my fingers right now. Yeah, left side, he's a nice guy. He looks like he's remorseful. More talkative, open, very sad. And now his right side, what he's trying to project is that I'm confident, I'm cool, I'm level-headed, I'm a badass. And you could, go into MS Paint and split his face up, and you'd be able to see that.
Right. I love that thing that you do, by the way.
Do the finger thing. Yeah.
I love that you do that in your videos, that you'll take someone's face, and you did it with Mr. Beast, where you made the character of Jimmy and the character of the Beast, and then you did it with Sam Hyde, right, where you split the face. Yeah. This is a really interesting kind of to get at the two halves of someone's psyche, right? And I guess that relates back to brain hemispheres as well.
Exactly. So what is this guy? Give me now that I've given the reading.
Dr. Armin Hillman is a fascinating case study of someone who is like a monomaniac obsessive. Basically, everything you said is bang on the money. He's a performer professionally on YouTube, where he does these long, deep dives into ancient Greek, particularly the Bible in ancient Greek. He's got a real axe to grind against Christianity and trying to prove that Jesus was basically a drug dealer from antiquity. And he's gone on this he's on this like religious crusade, basically. People in my chat have an instinctive revulsion to him, which is why I bring him up. They say he has evil physiognomy, the face of evil, and he does have a kind of like pugilistic, combative face, there's like,
that's I've had a guy in my email, we've been going back and forth, just like a random guy who messaged me about Alex O'Connor, Cosmic Skeptic.
Oh,
and
shit, yeah.
Hey, there's something. Well, he said there used to be something evil in his eye. Last message he sent me, I think he was saying that he thinks Cosmic Skeptic is gay now. I don't know what that is, but I looked it up.
And deduce someone's sexuality from their face? That's fascinating.
Yeah, there's some things, like I've seen a number of guys where I'm like totally gay. I think it has to do with like a more upturned nose, so like more impatient, more impulsive, big teeth, big mouth. Those all stand for big sexual appetites. Because I think there's a large degree to which, for a lot of guys, homosexual, especially in this day and age, and even before, I think by and large, male homosexuality as a phenomenon is mostly a result of just indulging sexual appetites. Just saying, fine enough for me. I just want to use something. And in older pictures of him when he was younger, his right eye, you can do a little bit of that here, but it's not so much, but there's a very strong contrast. It used to be that his right eye was really deep set and the eyebrow was way lower than it is now. It was really hostile. And now I'm kind of noticing a thing where it seems like, I'll have to look at more pictures of it, but I'm beginning to suspect that atheists may have, that may be an atheist sign, a hostile right side of the face, where there's this hostility against the outside world and other people. Because like religion is a fundamental human thing. You know, it's the bulwark, it's the foundation of any given human society.
It's fascinating as well how your friend said that it changed over time, right? Because Alex O'Connor used to be vitriolically atheist, like really against religion. And now he's like weirdly sympathetic to religion. He's not like come around to like Christ or anything, but his change has been marked, I'd say. There's like a real change.
Well, he's like general philosophy guy right now. And what I see immediately, not just with the eyebrow, like I said, it used to be really low down. So that meant that in his public and professional life, he was very quick to judge, very decisive. Now it's high set. It's this, you know, he takes a long time to decide. He's much more considerate. You'll notice that on average, men have lower set eyebrows, women have higher set eyebrows. Think of the classic couple going shopping. Wife wants to look at all the options, consider everything. Oh, let's see what this one is. And the husband is like, you know, he's got his low brows. He's like, this one's good enough. Let's go. And that's why that is a thing. You'll notice a lot of philosophers and people, Jonathan Peugeot, even if they're men, they'll have higher eyebrows because they're more like, oh, well, I'll consider that. And we have to consider all the options, think about things. Don't want to rush into, don't want to be hasty, don't want to rush in any decisions. That's why they say stuff is highbrow versus lowbrow, right?
Got you. Yeah. Highbrow. Okay.
So, but yeah, I'd say there's an atheist physiognomy going on there that I if I put my mind to it, I could probably, at some point I need to go through and I could probably figure out what that is, identify it.
Dude, that's fascinating. Yeah, if you could find that, like the key features that run through, that would be genuinely fascinating. Yeah. Okay, a little bit more kind of esoteric with the questions. What do you think? How do you think physiognomy's changed you? Like, what do you think that you've what's the most profound lesson that you've learned from it? Because on the surface, I'm not going to lie, like people are going to find out that you do this and they're going to assume that you're an incredibly prejudicial, judgmental person. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of, people, and in a way you'll have adapted to those kind of faculties. But what have you learned, I guess, is what I'm asking about the human condition in doing this.
Big one for me is ironically being less prejudiced than the average person, learning to appreciate features for what they are. So when you don't know physiognomy, you look at people and you're just like, ugly or beautiful. That's pretty much it, right?
Yeah.
And so you would just look at Alex O'Connor and be like, he looks weird or whatever, because he doesn't fit a certain mold or model or whatever.
Right.
When you're, and maybe this is my wide set eyes, my tolerant eyes talking, but when you know physiognomy, you look at someone and you don't see weird, you don't see gross looking, you see specialized. You see that he is specialized for a certain niche in society. It's analogous to an ecosystem, right? Ecosystem would not work if every animal was a lion. Much in the same way that society would not work if everyone was Tony Robbins, right? You have one tiger in the whole jungle, you have one Tony Robbins in the whole of society, and it works well. So a big part of that has been, appreciating different features. on TikTok intermittently, I don't want to call it a crusade, but I'll kind of speak out against it's nose jobs. I think they're being overdone. I think there might be a place for them, but you've got these gorgeous Italian girls with this great, Roman or Greek nose going under the knife for these, these rich LA doctors, and then they get a little snub nose. They can be very
grotesque as well.
It can look gross, and it'll change the personality. Yeah. That's something.
Right. This is something I really wanted to ask you about. So you're a believer that, of course, when the external traits change, people's internal traits match that over time. Mm-hmm. They come to match the new traits of the snub-nosed woman. That's fascinating.
I believe that. And it's complex. I don't know the exact action mechanism. It could be neuromuscular. It could be maybe hormonal. Could be a lot of it. I think is subconscious. How you perceive yourself, how other people perceive you. Yep. And I'm not purely against plastic surgery, right? I had a client, this Brazilian kid, who had a jaw surgery, it made him look better from both the side and the front, and it shifted him actually from kind of a melancholic, choleric mix. Like he had an indeterminate temperament. He was kind of stuck between the two. It pushed him fully into choleric territory, and I was sort of helping coach him through how to handle that change, how to best promulgate that transformation. So they're good uses for it.
I mean, I'm with you, man. I'm against it too, right? I think in terms of an ancestry thing, I think it's horrible. I think it's trying to make everybody the same, which is we already have a problem with uniformity, and the fact that all these unique cultures are being kind of wiped out by what I would call the age of Aquarius.
Exactly. Every girl is getting smushed into the Kardashian look, right?
Yes,
and
completely.
Hopefully, maybe that'll be a thing that we leave in the 2010s. Maybe we'll look back on that and be like, that was a 2010s trend.
Fingers crossed.
But there is something gross to that, and a lot of the beauty standard stuff. I mean, listen, I'm a father. Like, I've got a daughter, man, and it rubs me the wrong way seeing this beauty culture stuff. Now the feminists don't know which way to go with it, right? The smarter and more principled ones are against it. They're like, this is society is treating women like blow up dolls with the lip filler. It's gross. It looks painful.
Yeah.
But then others are like, well, it's liberation, it's freedom, and to consume products, right, and pay for these elaborate skincare routines that end up destroying your skin. So
it's wild.
That's a tangent.
And it's also like a fake beauty thing. It's like a veneration of fake beauty, right? Because it's not like a natural ethereal beauty. It's a homogenous conformity beauty that like
bimbo beauty. Yeah.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's really, really pedestalized that over the last 10 years. It's kind of scary seeing the way things are going. But that's interesting because I imagine you will draw an audience of people who almost want to be, I was talking about this earlier, but like the chud who thinks it's all over, it's all so over. I think there'll be something reassuring in physiognomy where they'll be like, they'll be looking for a reason to have it confirmed on them that things are set in stone, that it is really over. But what you're actually saying is you can change your physiognomy. Right, but be it through plastic surgery or mewing or in some kind of, that's very, very.
Or it also works the other way. It's a two-way street. You will, if you develop your personality and give it like with our friend here, right, Mr. O'Connor. Mr. O'Connor, top of the day to you, and you can change your face over time by developing as a person, and inner light maxing. They say, like, I used to be a repugnant chud. I was never like 1 out of 10, true cell, rope maxer. Like, I was never that bad looking, but I was pretty gross looking most of my life, right? Through teenage and a little bit beyond. Then as I turned to faith, started working on myself, working harder, I've started to look better. I feel like I look a lot better now than I did just a year or two ago, just from getting married, having a daughter.
Isn't that fascinating, right? Like the actual life reflects the face and the face reflects the life, that it isn't just a one-way thing.
So that's a big thing, is changes over time, and the two-way street there. And at some point I'm gonna do a big, like, hour-plus long plastic surgery video. It's going to be
interesting.
It's going to be like a bread tuber style, like 2-hour extravaganza. I'm going to be, I don't know. I have there's an inner theater kid in me. I have an asymmetrical face in my jaw and my face shape. So my left face is Mars. So in my inner life, I'm pretty aggressive and impulsive. In my personal life, my outer self is very mercurial, funny and good at communicating. So there's a mercurial theater kid in me that wants to I don't know. Maybe I'll do costumes.
To escape.
Maybe I'll do costumes for that video, like ContraPoints, or I don't know.
Are you worried that too many people will learn this stuff? Like, do you want to gatekeep? Does part of you want to gatekeep it, knowing how powerful it is and knowing how useful it is?
Yeah, somewhat. But I also think that, for example, I was hesitant of making these videos and stuff like YouTube and TikTok because I thought, well, is anyone going to pay me to analyze them if I've got the information out there? But it's, if people see you giving the information, they trust your opinion as an expert. I just launched a Patreon, where I put on like extra videos where they are like full tutorials, and I just have a Discord where people can ask me stuff, and they're in there asking me questions like all day, pretty much, about like, what does this mean? What does it mean? What about this guy? And like they've studied the videos, they're reading the information I have up on the Patreon, so they know, like, they're like, hey, is this? But it's, edge cases, right? It's practicing. So they're like, is this guy a phlegmatic or a sanguine, or is he both, or whatever?
That's the stuff I'd like to get good at. Yeah, is like instant analysis and deduction that you seem to be really, really good at. That's
just practice makes perfect. And there's that. And I don't generally worry about gatekeeping the information, right? Because I think that, like anything, I think that it takes a lot of hard work to get good at it. I think that that's automatic gatekeeping. Yeah,
barrier to entry.
Like, for example, if you're more of like an astrology guy, let's say, the astrology information is pretty much all out there. Like, you can get it if you want it, and everyone knows what astrology is. They know what horoscopes are. Not everyone is like an expert, like natal chart reader. Very few.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually. It takes a long time actually to get to develop an interpretive practice that actually makes sense. Whereas you're right, you can just go look up what it means to have Mars Leo in the second house, right? But it actually matters quite a lot to, and weirdly, other than this is why it does not surprise me that one of the guys who I mean, you're an autodidact, but one of the guys that you've taken a lot of influence from the most is a psychologist. Because short of being a prostitute, there are very few professions where you're going to see that cross section of society, and you're going to interact with that many people that you'll be able to make these kind of deductions. And you've obviously opened that channel up yourself by taking readings and doing that, and then learning over time. But for most people, you don't get access to that swath of data that you would need to actually start practicing. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's that's why I think it was fortuitous that I started learning it in college and while studying abroad.
It's kind of mad when you think about what kind of wizard you're going to be when you're like 60 years old. Actually, it's kind of insane when you think about that level of like, yeah, that's wild. Okay, is there anything you want to promote? Is there anything you want to share? Is there other than Discord and the Patreon and stuff? Is there anything you want to let people know about? That documentary kind of plastic surgery thing sounds fascinating. But are there any other big projects coming down the pipe?
That's going to be one of these days. That's pretty distant. Big things. I'm just going to keep going more with more face reading videos. Like I said, new video coming up is a Phenotype video. After that one, I'm going to do a face reading on a lady celebrity, maybe Candace Owens. Sydney Sweeney, I did a couple videos about on my TikTok a while ago over the months, but I think she's kind of fallen out of the news cycle.
Is it kind of is it difficult for you to stay like such a weird way of putting it, but stay based and not wander off into like just doing celebrity face reading, which could probably get you a lot of traffic, but would probably bring a different kind of audience to you?
It's actually kind of the opposite from what I learned. So I did the same hide video, and you'll notice after that I do Asmongold, which is like adjacent sort of streamer guy.
Yeah.
Then I do Anya Taylor-Joy and Ryan Gosling. And those actually don't do that well.
Anya Taylor-Joy one. I have to watch that. Okay, interesting. Yeah.
Haha, you like her, yeah.
Yep.
But she those actually didn't do that well. And what it is that celebrities are great for examples. I use celebrities as examples for my clients and my Discord information on my Patreon and whatnot. But they're not really good for analysis, because celebrities, actors especially, are just kind of boring. Like, an actor is just a theater kid, a sociopathic theater kid with a bunch of money. That's like most actors. Obviously they have different faces, so they have different personality variants, but they aren't doing that much interesting stuff, right? But what I found, the videos that get good traffic are the interesting
analyses,
like the politically active sort of people. So Charlie Kirk video got good numbers because people are interested in him. They're like, what's his end game? Is he Israel?
That was interesting, actually. We just watched that before you came in.
Nick
Fuentes, the Nick one as well. Yeah, the Nick one did numbers. Yeah, that's crazy. And that's a guy who's like fascinating to try and understand. I think people are really interested. But yeah, you're right. With celebrities, you don't even know their personal life, so you can't point to example. You can use them as broad examples, but you can't really analyze them like in the specifics the way you can like someone like Sam Hyde.
Yeah,
who has a prolific track record behind him.
Exactly. With him, and he's just like transformed so much. With a celebrity that's so managed and manicured that it's hard to get the real stuff. But yeah, I think that's main thing. Just kind of so looking for an interesting lady to do, not an actress or anything. So maybe Candace Owens, like I said, maybe somebody else. Depends on how the news cycle goes this week and next. And it's gonna be main thing. At some point, I'm gonna get back on doing TikToks, but right now, I've got a backlog of clients.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah, lots of people are rushing me for this stuff, and I don't rush them. I don't half-ass any of it. So it's taken a while to get through them all, but I'm working at that.
Good on you.
And then keeping up with the YouTube videos and doing little interviews like this, because
nice, man.
Which is nice. I appreciate the platform. Awesome.
No, and I appreciate you giving me your time. It's been a fascinating conversation. I could quite literally talk to you for hours and be like, what does this level of eyebrow hair mean or whatever, and just like spur.
Well, I'm always down to
great introduction.
To come back. Seriously. We can touch more on we talked a bit about Lombroso and atavism and stuff, but
yeah, that'd be great to unpack some of that stuff. Yeah, if you're open to it, I'd love to have you on again, and maybe even have you on with like some people who like some other interesting internet people, and have you read their faces and stuff like that. That could be fucking interesting.
That'd be fun. Yeah, so I'm down for a sequel, but I know it's getting late there. I can see the sunset going down.
Yeah, we're losing hours and whatnot, but
I don't want to dox you, but what part are you in? Like southern England?
Oh no, I'm in London. Yeah, I'm in like the actual. Well, not in actual city of London, but close enough. I'm like 20 miles outside of London. London is not a place you want to be these days, to be honest with you. So it's,
so I've heard.
Yeah,
I figured you were around there because I caught the accent.
Very much a southern English accent.
The swarthier, Mediterranean look. Actually, a Cockney. Who is it?
Both my parents, if Cockneys existed anymore, like both my parents would be, well, my mom specifically would be a Cockney, I guess, like in the old sense.
Stoddard identifies Cockney as like a Mediterranean strain that proliferated during the Industrial Revolution. He actually, that's a totally different thing, but yeah, in The Rising Tide of Color, he talks about how, I read this excerpt somewhere on Wikimedia, I think Wikisources, where he's talking about how Britain got more Mediterranean because the big cities were full of more Mediterranean-looking Cockneys, and they proliferated due to industrialization. So America was actually originally a subsection of a more Nordic original Britain.
Yeah, makes sense because
and of course it being like
where people moved from in Britain. I mean, like
So, but that's a totally different thing. But anyways, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Talking to you, man.
Thank you for your time.
Not at all. And thank you everyone in the chat who donated and stuff. I'll be back soon with the next one. But yeah, really, really good. And thanks again to Taylor for joining us.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
Thank you, man.